This week on the Hopkins Coffee Break, the ladies sit down with the chairman of the Growth Study Committee, Amy Ritterbush.
Discussion item. So what about those things?
Yeah, so the town invested in sidewalks, I don't remember the exact year, maybe 5 years ago, a big package they did sidewalks on Ash Street and several other places. Then when that was done, they put another article to town meeting to do more sidewalks, and it
HCAM programming is supported by viewers like you. Thank you.
And by Angels Garden Center, growing in Hopkinton since 1957.
And by Hopkinton Drug, an integrative pharmacy and community partner since 1954, providing customized compounded medication in their on-site lab, nutritional supplements, and a knowledgeable staff. Hopkinton Drug, believing food, exercise, and community, along with an integrative approach to medicine, can help you achieve your wellness goals.
This is HCAM TV.
The Chinese people are becoming more sophisticated.
A headline cover, just odds and ends, bits and pieces.
That was like the first time in my life that I studied for something that I really loved, and I aced it.
Okay. Well said.
Okay. All right, so we're just going to go into executive session, Arfan. I'll call the meeting to order, but, okay. So this is Amy Ritterbush, and I would like to call the meeting of the Select Board to order for February 28th, 2023. This meeting is being held in person at Town Hall and remotely using the video conference platform Zoom. Select Board member Irfan Nasrullah will be participating remotely tonight. Muriel Kramer and myself are in person for the meeting, and we're not, so Mary Jo Lafreniere and Shaido Manan are not here yet, but they may join remotely later. So at this time, I will ensure that Select Board members participating remotely can hear and be heard. Irfan, can you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, and we can hear you. The public has the option of attending in person here at Town Hall or via Zoom using the link posted in the meeting's agenda. This meeting is being recorded. All votes will be taken by roll call vote. And our first item on the agenda is to move into... Oh, dear. Could you turn on captions, do you think? Would that help?
You don't hear. He does not hear.
Okay, I'm going to try again, Irfan. Can you hear now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. All right, so first I would accept a motion to enter into executive session.
Sorry.
Oh, dear. So the screen is flickering a little too. I don't know if there's a cable somewhere not plugged in.
Yeah, I can see the screen flickering on this end as well.
Are your cables all plugged in?
What's it?
Are your cables all plugged in, Irfan?
Well, the screen that's flickering is the Select Board Zoom one. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, we're unplugging and replugging.
Oh, nice.
Okay. I made it. Hello.
Don't trip, Mary Jo. Okay.
So I hear that Mayor Joe was there and at the national forum. You want to just call the meeting to order and move to executive session and hopefully this can resolve itself when we come back.
That sounds like a good plan. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to move into executive session for the following reasons. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to consider strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to police, fire, and communications union, because an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board. Second, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 2, to consider strategy with respect to negotiations with non-union personnel, police chief, and town manager. Reason 3, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 6, to consider the purchase, lease, sale, or value of real estate in relation to properties in the vicinity of Town Hall, 0 Spring Street, 0 West Main Street, let's see, Lot B, rear Main, West Main Street, and 3 contiguous parcels on College Street totaling 20.74 acres, because an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiation position of the board. Also to approve executive session minutes. Also to allow Norma Claro and Elaine Lazarus to participate in the executive session, and to reconvene an open session at the conclusion of executive session.
So moved.
Second. And a roll call vote.
Harold Kramer, yes. Mary Jo Fernie, yes.
Amy Ritterbusch, yes. Irfan, can you hear?
Yes, certainly, yes.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So we will be back shortly.
would you do if someone gave you a television station? Would you run a camera? Host your own programs? Would you like to be a director or edit your own shows? Or maybe be a big-time producer? Or cover your local sports? Well, your station is ready for action. Start your media ventures with the workshop at HCAM. From setting lights and directing talent to editing, HCAM makes quality programs and teaches you to do the same. If you're interested in having fun and making a difference in the community, why not do it on TV? Join our crew and get your own piece of the action.
I'm Dr. Martin Gelman. Chronic kidney disease, a condition in which your kidneys are damaged and cannot filter the body's blood properly, affects some 26 million Americans. Left undetected and untreated, the condition can lead to kidney failure and even death. The two most common causes of chronic kidney disease are diabetes and high blood pressure. Patients with cardiovascular disease, obesity, and a family history of kidney disease are also at risk. Among the symptoms of the condition are changes in urination, swelling, itching, pain in the back or sides, a metallic taste in the mouth, feeling cold, shortness of breath, dizziness, or fatigue. If you experience these symptoms, see your primary care provider to get tested. The earlier the disease is detected, the more effective treatments can be. For more information,
Oh, hi. I was reading. I love to read. Do you ever start reading a book and you can't put it down? You have to read it, and you feel like you're in another world and you can't wait to find out what happens next? That's what happens to me. My name is Eleanor. You can call me Elle. My friend Belle, who is on the movie Beauty and the Beast, she also loves books. You could say she has reverence for books. We treasure books, almost like they're other worlds or real people. Do you ever feel like
Okay, and I don't see Shahidul. I think he's probably just going to take the evening off. I don't think he has his surgery.
It's too much.
Should we wait? We should probably wait for Norman to get back. Oh, Irfan, can you hear us now?
It's the same problem as before, coming in and out.
Coming in and out.
He's calling her.
So you could call in if for better audio, or
Is Irfan the only one on?
oh, there are members of the public too, but they're not livened up, so they can't say they can hear us.
Well, let's just keep going this way and see how it goes. If I need to call in, I will.
Okay.
But I don't know if other members of the public can hear Irfan.
Yeah, well, that's kind of part of the issue, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not all about you.
As bad as I am, you are correct.
Okay. Well, so I would like for the public to be able to hear us, though, which we can ask them to. Okay. I think it's more that it's cutting in and out, not the noise. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we're going to give this a try. If people are having trouble hearing and they're on the Zoom, they could try calling into the Zoom instead of using the computer audio. But we'll see how it goes here. Okay, so when HCAM is ready? We're ready, okay. So good evening, my name is Amy Ritterbush, and the Select Board has returned from executive session, and we're starting open session, which we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And this is not on the agenda, but we would just like to have a brief moment of silence for a community member who was lost today, a 19-year-old boy who was lost in the woods and was found deceased today. So we're going to have a moment of silence, please, out of respect for the family. Thank you, everyone.
So, if I could, Madam Chair, I want to thank you for doing that, and also encourage anybody in the community, no matter your age, no matter where you are, no matter your circumstance, but to reach out. There are resources in town for help, and we will do whatever we can, whatever we need to do to provide that support and help. So the Hopkinton Youth and Family Services here is exceptional, and I know that the police department also has social workers attached to that. Reach out, call somebody, find the help that we hope you can access.
Okay, so now we will move on to our public forum. Residents will have up to or members of the public will each have 2 minutes to speak at public forum. Please start by stating your name and address. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak at public forum? And I guess I should say we're also having public info sessions later in the agenda. So if you want to speak on the bylaw amendments or the comprehensive budget, we can call on you later at 7:15 or 7:45 for those. But would anyone else like to speak at public comment tonight? Okay, there's Peggy on Zoom, I think, had her hand up. Oh, her hand's not up anymore. Okay, so I think no one, oh no, her hand is up. So can we liven up Peggy?
Oh, okay. This is a different format I'm not used to, so you can hear me, I guess.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, but you can't see me, so you can't tell what I'm looking at right now. Looking like.
We can't see you. Yeah.
All right, you can hear it. Let's see. Yes, I wanted to comment on the gun club issue. Is it the right time to do that?
You can comment now, but we're also going to discuss it later.
Okay, well, I can wait.
Okay. All right, so just stay tuned.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so then there's no one else for public comment at the moment anyway, so we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is the Elementary School Building Committee to Elmwood School Preferred Replacement Option. The Elementary School Building Committee will ask the Select Board to consider voting on the preferred schematic option and site for replacing Elmwood School. The school committee is also in attendance. So we'll ask the Chair, John Graziano, to come forward and give us an overview.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Tiffany Ostrander. I'm the Vice Chair of the Elmwood Building Committee, and I'm joining John this evening to share with you our recommendation about the Elmwood project. So John, myself, along with the other members of the committee, have been working on the project since July of 2022. Once we had our selection of our project manager, Vertex, and our design team, Perkins Eastman, on board, we began to review every available parcel in town that could be a workable space for a large new school facility, and that included any parcel of land that was 12 or more acres. Can they see our slides, John?
Okay. I know they're in the packet.
Yeah,
I don't know if they can be
do you want
displayed.
Yes. First slide or second slide?
We can go to the second slide. Thank you. I just want to be sure that others can see what I'm speaking about.
Oh, it's up there.
Yep. That's handy. Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. On the screen, you'll see that this is the evaluation criteria that we use to determine the best way to find the site for the Elmwood project. So with the support of the project manager, our design team, we created this evaluation criteria to help us determine the site viability. Once we had a draft of the evaluation criteria, we asked for the input of the visioning team that was created by the Elmwood School Building Committee group. And this visioning team was a group of Hopkinton community members, over 25 plus community members from varying stakeholder groups, including senior citizens, prior Hopkinton Public School parents, individuals who didn't have an affiliation with Hopkinton Public Schools, or even those who may have children who may attend Hopkinton Public Schools in the future. So this group of community stakeholders helped us to determine what was most important in the evaluation criteria, and also add or delete things that we might not have found were priorities for our school system. But we did want to make sure that we accounted for things that are priorities, including traffic, net zero achievability, and the overall cost of the school. So using the criteria on the screen, we were able to whittle down to two most advantageous site locations, which included the current Elmwood Street School site, and as well as a few sites actually on Hayden Row. So if you head to the next screen, next slide, thank you. We are excited to share that our recommendation this evening for your endorsement, that was endorsed by the school committee, is the Hayden Row East site. And this is the site that is the remaining parcel of the Todaro property. It is the parcel where Marathon School is built, and you can actually see that on the slide up to the northern part of the slide. And the school would be built on the eastern side of the parcel. You can head to the next slide, please. Perfect. So at this new school site location, we will have ample play space for students to support physical education and recess, with more outdoor features available as well for learning, such as a rain garden and outdoor courtyards. And we're also hopeful that this additional space on the lot will support car queuing for effective drop-off and lessen traffic on Hayden Row, which we know is a main concern for those in town. We also want to be sure that we're exploring other opportunities connected to this parcel, which is walkability. It's really a treasure to be able to walk your child to and from school, and we are happy to share that the Blueberry neighborhood and the Briarcliff neighborhood are what we believe to be within reasonable walking distance, and we would like to explore that further with our design team. So if you head to the next page, we're excited because additionally, this location supports the opportunity for future growth, if necessary, with land that's been reserved to build additional classroom spaces. So here in the schematic design, you'll see along the dotted lines, at the end of each wing is a space where we could provide or build more classrooms should we need to. And we expect that the academic programming can thrive in the schematic design that we are recommending. This design is called the Hayden Row Village. It is HR 7. It would host grades 2 through 4, which is the configuration that the school committee thinks would be best for our town. This design has 3 floors with 3 wings and about 6 classrooms in each wing. Specialized support, such as English language teachers, speech therapists, special educators, will have instructional spaces within each wing, and this will help to maximize inclusion for students and the ease of getting to services for those who need to have those services held outside the classroom. Additionally, we believe that the village model supports each wing to feel like a neighborhood with common meeting and learning spaces. We had heard from Hawkins teachers that they were concerned about the size of the building, and we feel like having the opportunity to have these neighborhood wings provides the option to have that smaller community feel. It's also important to point out that the visioning team recommended that the media center or library is the heart of the school, and we believe that this will continue to be a main feature as we move forward. Safety and security is also a priority in this model. By choosing the village model, we were able to provide features where we can configure the security for staff and students with many of the common areas in the front of the building, such as the gym, the cafeteria, and the stage, so that they can be accessible for rental or basketball on the weekend, whereas the classrooms are in the rear of the school building, so they can be secured or kind of off the shelf to those who visit on a daily basis. And then again, because it is a large school, we did want to consider continuing to be sure that the traffic inside the building flowed as well as we hope it flows outside the building. So we also put the gym and the cafeteria at alternate sides of the building to support student transitions so that kids could move around as well as their teachers. If you head to the next slide. We did want to zoom in a bit further into the evaluation criteria that we used to determine that the Hayden Row East site was the most advantageous. Here on the screen you'll see several colors. The dark green is the most advantageous and the red is the least advantageous, with yellow being a neutral objective. So we used several criteria, including a lot of things. Like, I gotta go back, that's really small to see on the screen. Educational programming, traffic, net zero achievability, all of the criteria that we showed previously. I appreciate the zooming in there. Thank you. To find the site that we felt would work best for us. So if you do look at this map holistically, it's really clear to see that the Hayden Row sites were most advantageous. And quite honestly, we could have picked either site, but what made this site most advantageous was really connected to traffic, to this opportunity for walkability. And although Elmwood is a very beloved site, it is in a place in town that we're all familiar with. It did bring major constraints, which included a smaller land parcel, and of course the fact that the current Elmwood School would need to remain functioning as we did construction, and quite honestly that impacted schematic design pretty greatly. And we had even talked about, if we did choose that parcel, that we would have some shuttling of staff and students on busing from one location to another just to get to school each day. So with that, we really felt like it wasn't most advantageous to continue to think about building on that Elmwood site. So John's going to share with you a bit more about traffic and costs now connected to the evaluation criteria.
Thanks, Tiffany. So we recognize that probably the 2 biggest areas of question on that evaluation criteria, especially based on what we've heard thus far from the public, are cost and traffic. So I wanted to address those specifically. First, on the cost, in the packet we have a matrix here that shows the relative cost between most of the options that we were considering. These cost estimates were driven by two different estimating firms. And the good news is that they all came in pretty, the estimating firms came in very close to each other, so we feel pretty comfortable with the numbers that they are giving us. What you can see here is that from a pure construction and soft cost, most of the options we looked at were pretty close to each other in the kind of $160 to $170 million range. Tiffany mentioned some of the challenges of the Elmwood site. One of the things that we had to factor in when we were considering cost is that while the Elmwood School would need to continue to function, there are times when we simply would need additional swing space, whether it's actual classrooms for students, parking for staff and other community members. And so we estimated in some of those swing space costs, and obviously that, that involves modulars, things like that. So that upped the cost estimates on those options quite significantly. And honestly, in doing the evaluation, the cost is only one factor. We couldn't even come up with where that swing space would be in town if we could afford it. So that obviously made the Hayden Row look even more attractive from a cost perspective. We did choose the eastern portion of the site, and that comes with a little bit more expense, and that more expense is simply more road because it's further back in the site. The reason we chose the further back in the site despite that was because the building itself will obviously be a good-sized building, and what we're proposing is actually a 3-story building. And we felt like putting it further back from the road would be less obtrusive to neighbors. Additionally, while that additional road is an expense, it allows us, my segue, I guess, it allows us to take that many more cars off of Hayden Row during the drop-off and pickup times. We can increase a lot of the queuing that will happen on the site and therefore make that a little bit more flexible. The numbers here are obviously big numbers. I was obviously involved with the Marathon School, which was a significantly lower number than this, but I would note a couple of things. One, the Marathon School had significantly less square footage due mostly to the fact that it only has 2 grades. We've also incurred costs, as we know, to increase the size of that school because of our growing enrollment. So the additional size is a factor. Technology improvements, some of the net zero and HVAC decisions that we will make throughout the next few months will drive kind of where this price falls in the range. And then the other piece to it is the construction industry has seen a massive amount of inflation. We're looking at construction costs on a per square foot basis that are almost double of what we built Marathon at. So that is just the nature of cost right now. The good news is these numbers are all before MSBA reimbursement. So we can expect that the MSBA reimbursement will be kind of in the same range that we had for the Marathon School. And obviously, the advantage of building the bigger school here is that we're realizing more reimbursable dollars because the MSBA gave us that flexibility.
Can you remind me, is it about 30% that they reimburse?
It works out to a bit less than that. I forget what our actual quote-unquote reimbursement rate is, but in terms of the actual percentage of the project, there's so many things that are excluded that it usually ends up being more like in the 20s.
Okay. 25?
Yeah, I think that's probably about, it's probably about right. So.
And how much was Marathon?
In terms of reimbursement rate or total cost?
Total cost.
Total cost I think was around 40-something.
About 40-something?
Yeah, what was it?
I think it was 45.
45,
I think it was
yeah.
45.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead. Did you have more?
I was going to talk about traffic.
Oh, yes.
And then
that was the other.
Traffic and then timeline. So traffic, which is the other hot button issue. We obviously debated this quite significantly. There were members of our committee who were vocally against even considering the Hayden Row site because of what they believed the impact on traffic would be. So we engaged our traffic engineer, who's part of our design team, earlier in the process than we normally would, to begin looking at the existing traffic environment in and around Marathon, and as well as Hayden Row at the peak times. and actually had him do a little bit more of an analysis than would normally be done this early on. The good news is that he, at one of our last meetings, said that confidently he believes that we can build on this site without having a significant negative impact on traffic during those peak times. There's a few reasons for this, and again, we've got a lot of work to do. One of the reasons is, as I mentioned, the larger queue that we'll be able to drive. This will actually help not only the new school traffic, but also the marathon traffic. You'll notice that there was a road connecting the two buildings on that schematic design. As we think about where buses and cars go in, we can be pretty creative with that space to take a lot of that traffic off of the road. The other factors that we're looking at are how we can potentially look at the times of the schools. One of the things that he mentioned is that our start and end times are so close together that by the time the marathon starts letting out, the high school traffic is still there. So even adjusting by 5 or 10 minutes one way or the other, he noted could have a significant impact. Easier said than done from an operational perspective, but it's something that's under consideration. The other piece to this also is that by bringing the Elmwood School over to where Marathon is, we would not have buses going all the way across town. So it would cut down on the traffic would be isolated to that area. And we have a significant population too of parents that are doing drop off and pickup because they have a child at each school, and you simply have to get from one to the other. And now they'll both be in one place, and actually hopefully because their kids are kind of aligned from a schedule perspective, even get them on the bus again.
That's the dream.
Which would be the biggest benefit that we could have. So,
and there could be one drop-off for both schools, too?
Yes.
So they would only have to stop once?
They would only have to stop once, right. So we don't know a lot of the details yet around like what it would impact for bus runs or things like that, so more to come from that perspective. The other thing I'll note is on this slide, you see those two traffic lights, and the significance of them is that our traffic engineer is going to provide us with traffic information that extends from Main Street to the light at Chestnut. So this is larger than you'd normally have in terms of the impact of where this school is, but obviously recognizing that whole Hayden Road corridor is impacted. What I will stress is this project is not going to solve the high school, middle school traffic problem. Luckily it's going to provide us some information that the town and the school district might be able to act upon to help alleviate that traffic. But a lot of times when people talk about Hayden Road, they're talking about that pocket of high school, middle school, and this is definitely not going to solve that. We're going to be focused on that elementary portion. So I'll quickly go over the timeline and then certainly open it up to any questions that you have. So as Tiffany outlined, we've gone through a really detailed analysis to land on this preferred schematic report. The preferred schematic is just that. We've got a lot more work to do in terms of the design of the building, the decisions around the HVAC and mechanical systems, more detailed design components. That will be happening throughout the rest of this year, mostly over the summer, and tracking towards a November town meeting where we would look to get the town's approval of the project. Tonight, what we're looking for is, in order to take the next step in this process and continue within the MSBA's process, is your endorsement of the recommendation. And then tomorrow, the ESBC will approve the preferred schematic report, and that will be submitted to the MSBA on Thursday. At that point, we'll have probably a little bit of back and forth with them with questions and answers, and then we'll be able to move on to the next detailed design phase.
Okay. All right, so I appreciate all your work on this. I've not come in person, but I've watched a lot of the meetings on TV to kind of follow along, and I really do appreciate that there was no really awesome traffic solution, that they all were in the yellow zone. I think none of them were in the green zone there, but yeah, I do think so I think you've come up with a good solution and got a lot of feedback, and I really appreciate that. And I want to say I really like that there would be walking paths from Briarcliff and Blueberry, because I think that could reduce cars too, because kids that are fourth grade, third grade even can walk to school with a parent, and that could keep them off the roads. So I think that's a good thing. And if you're going to make green choices with the energy, it could be cost savings in the future, even though it may be more expensive to install the green HVAC systems to start. Do any board members have any questions or comments?
at this time? I do. So I really appreciate all your hard work too, and I really appreciate this presentation. I know that a lot of people have been following along, but this is just one more opportunity for people to interact with the picture as it's coming together, so that is always appreciated. When do we know, and I should probably know this because I have paid attention at other school votes, but when do we know when MSBA will make their decision? When in the timeline do we know when MSBA will decide what they're reimbursing?
So the reimbursement, and I should have noted, we've got a lot of our, in addition to committee members, we've also got Bob Bell and Jeff D'Amico from Perkins Eastman and Vertex, formerly known as Compass Project Management. And I'm saying that now because I'm going to look at Jeff. It's not so much a decision by the MSBA in terms of how much they will reimburse. There is a formula. So we get a certain reimbursement rate. There are things that are included, there are things that are excluded, there are things that are capped. So when we submit a final budget for the project is when we will then know exactly what the reimbursement is going to be, he says, and then looks at Jeff to confirm if I'm right.
Yeah, that's correct. So at this first submission this coming month, we'll hear back on some of the scope, whether it's eligible, ineligible, we'll have that early read on the numbers, and then at the end of August, when we submit the final dollar amount, the MSBA board will then take that up at their October board meeting. So that's why we suggested that a fall town meeting in November would line up well with that. We'll know before October what the numbers are, but that board will make their vote in October. We'll know the final value of the reimbursement. We'll have a good idea when we submit at the beginning of September.
Okay, so we'll have time to socialize that.
That's really helpful, but I should also say, I'm usually better at this, if folks are not speaking at the microphones, folks at home can't necessarily hear.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that was my mistake, but if anybody else has information to add, just come up to the microphone.
So could you repeat that, so around September we'll have...
I did hear everything.
Oh, good.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, so maybe it was better than we thought.
Yeah. Okay. Yay. Yeah, you do have a great speaking voice for that purpose. That's awesome. So the only other question, so I have had the opportunity also to watch, and I watched when the presentation was made about the site selection, so I really appreciate seeing it again, but I've had a lot of time to sort of think about it myself, and I appreciate the thoroughness of the factors and the conversation that went on. It wasn't just check, this looks better. So I very much appreciate that a lot of moving pieces have been engaged with to make this decision. And I think that I also watched the meeting on the grade configuration too, and I know that is a difficult conversation as well, and appreciate that all those pieces have been very accessible for people to see. I guess the only question I have at this time is, I also watched some of the conversation on the efficiencies, the energy efficiencies, the green energy and so forth. So I don't know if when the public could expect, or we could expect to have, I know that's sort of a newer area of conversation, but when we could expect to really fully understand the cost impacts of whatever efficiencies that we hope to be able to use, and also the return on investment. What is the expectation of what the public can expect to appreciate from those investments? So is there a process in place for that?
So there is a process. I don't have an exact time frame for you on when we'll be looking at that in particular, but what I can tell you is that one of the things that we're going to do at our meeting tomorrow is start to map out what are the things that we have to do in the next phases, and those kinds of decisions are included in that. And completely recognize and agree with you that these decisions are important to really clearly communicate to the whole community, because, as you've both acknowledged, a more expensive but efficient decision we make around the HVAC mechanical systems could have a really significant return on investment over the life of the building. And we need to be able to illustrate that for people, right? If we're going to be spending more money up front, we've got to know exactly what we're going to be saving going forward. And so we will, as we establish that timeline, we'll be advertising what we're going to be talking about at our meetings. We're going to continue to do forums and hope hope to continue to drive more attendance, though the last one we literally sent postcards to every mailbox in Hopkinton, and I think we got up to like 18 people. So, open to any ideas there. But I will say, our viewership, according to YouTube, is a lot higher than our attendance, which is good. We're going to continue to do forums where we can put this information out there and answer the questions of the public. So our commitment is that obviously this board, but the community as a whole, will know every step of the way and have enough advance notice of when any decisions are getting made or items are being considered. But I would imagine it's going to be between the spring and the summer that we'll be really driving towards a lot of those key decisions.
Yeah. And I imagine you're interacting with the Green Committee or have plans to?
We have, we've interacted a lot with the Sustainable Green Committee. Our design team actually met with them, went to one of their meetings and went over the options, and we're in pretty constant communication with them, and they'll be very involved in the conversations around some of these net zero readiness decisions and these HVAC and mechanical systems.
Yeah. Perfect. I really appreciate this presentation and the work that's gone into it thus far. It's a committee I have never aspired to be part of. Actually, to be honest, it's too much work, frankly. So I appreciate that.
It is a lot of work, but it's important to the community, and it's a building that we want to stand the test of time and have the opportunity to grow with the growth and the enrollment in the town. It's important we do it right. So thank you.
Okay. Mary Jo, did you have any questions or comments?
No, I would make a comment that I always thought that the new school should go in the Hayden Road area, that we should have a school district and not schools all over town. And so I'm very happy with this project. Plus, I'm looking at the school, and it's exactly like a school I went to, with the three. And the cafeteria and the auditorium, and I thought I was looking at my old school.
That's great. Yeah, I think we should have mentioned that is definitely a benefit. Obviously, the proximity of all the schools, but also specifically the proximity to the pre-K, K, and 1. The ability of collaboration, of cross-programming, of just
shared faculty.
Shared faculty. It will be a big advantage.
Good downtown, if little field trips are still a thing.
Yep.
Okay, Irfan, did you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, more of a comment. First off, I want to thank you both, thank the whole committee for the work you've done. I think the recommendation makes a lot of sense. I'm pleased with the location and design. I think it looks great. What really jumps off the page for me is the cost.
Yeah.
And $160 million is a lot, and even with the reimbursements. I'm curious to know what the tax impact that will have for the average homeowner here. We're looking at the capital requests that have been made, and as we're going through our budget and trying to look into the future, and so that number really jumps out. And a lot of what Ms. Kramer would say kind of are my questions as well, which is, it would be great if we could break it all down and understand what are we spending on green technology, and how much would it be without the green technology. And believe me, I'm all about being green and going for the most efficient forward thinking, but we also have to consider cost. And so I know I heard your answer, and over the summer I'd be really interested in hearing the costs that we're spending on efficiency. And if I could add one layer to that, what the tax, what the impact is going to be for the average resident here in Hopkinton on their tax bill.
So Irfan, I think we actually have that in that spreadsheet that we're going to get to on the capital projects in the budget for later in the meeting, so we can...
Did you print that, or did you? It wasn't here.
Oh, no one gave it to me. Did
everyone give it to one of us? Not all of us?
Oh, sorry. Oh, sure.
He's just trying to save paper.
It's a Google.
Yeah.
Being environmentally and cost sensitive.
Yeah,
It's a Google sheet too, but.
I know, I've been all over it today for about 5 hours, so.
Yeah.
So if I could just say,
Those are
Irfan,
estimates, though.
to your point on the costs around sustainability and environmental green decisions that we'll make, I can tell you that at the level we have already had these discussions, the committee is taking very seriously the responsibility to manage what is the right decision for the town. And that includes short-term and long-term costs, as well as the overall environmental benefit. This is not an easy thing to balance. And we will be as transparent as possible, and I am happy to come back to this committee anytime you want to talk about any aspect of that. But we can we'll make sure we continue to provide you with as much information. But the committee is really the cost jumps off the page at everybody, and unfortunately, like a lot of the costs that we all run into in daily life right now, they're just that's the environment that we're in right now, is the extreme increase in costs that we're seeing, and so we're doing our best to manage that while still being responsible to the students, the faculty, the staff, and administration that are going to be teaching there, and making this a really long-lasting building for the community.
Yeah, and I think we know there'll be a lot more meetings to come before we get to town meeting in the fall, and we can watch your meetings or ask questions. But we do have a very full agenda tonight, so I think we probably
say one more thing, and I'm really glad that you picked that up, Irfan, and we're talking about it openly. I just want to make sure I also say that Elmwood is just the first of a number of really huge decisions. So Elmwood at currently $170 million. I just see that the Hopkins estimate on your sheet is different than the one I was looking at. It's at $33 million. That's the first year we're thinking about. And then we've got the middle school to consider, currently estimated at $80 million, a preschool and an administration building currently estimated at $21 million. Pretty soon, we're actually talking about real money, I think. And this community is not just deciding on the Elmwood School replacement. We're deciding on a 5-year plan that changes the financial picture completely. So I just want to make sure I say it.
Agreed. And to be honest with you, I think the school committee made just a great decision in the benefit of kids in town and of our town fiscally as well by changing this building to a grade 2 through 4 configuration that solves a ton of the enrollment, 80% of the enrollment issues. And I know that this is a big price tag, and it's because we're adding an additional grade, and we're working to put it on the eastern side of a parcel. But I think this project is the first really important step, and likely the most important one. So we have to look at it as this one project right now, because we don't know what costs and inflation will do in the future, and maybe we'll be lucky and it'll start to trend back down. But this project really will make a huge difference for the entire school system, not just for the kids who will attend Elmwood School.
I think you make a really good point that the addition of the grade is a really important.
It's huge.
Pivot point, right?
Yes.
It's a really important thing to consider, but it's a lot to be contemplating.
100%.
And the committee is tired of hearing me say it at meetings, but we recognize that this Elmwood project would be much easier to do in a vacuum, but we're not there. And so we are constantly in contact with the school committee, the school district, the town, just to make sure that we recognize that this is a piece of a larger capital environment of needs within the town, and that we not only need to be responsible as a part of that, but also to just make sure that we're well aware of everything else that's going on and how this impacts it in any direction. So we are not operating as much as we'd like to, we're not operating as a singularly focused on this project committee. We know the environment we're working in, and we will continue to keep that in mind.
And I know that you're in a hurry to move on. I know you are. I know. I'm sorry. But the last thing I want to say is that the school building committees, the last two in particular, have done an amazing job externally communicating. So I really appreciate that. I guess if I had anything to say is that I would like this complete package of capital projects to have that kind of exposure at the outset. So this community can interact with the whole decision that's in front of us. I know that they come one at a time, but I think it's imperative. In this case in particular, I think it's imperative that we do an amazing job externally communicating and making sure we have the community's buy-in on this big package of capital projects, if that's the case.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to take a minute to thank our board member, Shaidul Manan, who's been a member of the Elementary School Building Committee too, and although he couldn't be here tonight, he's been updating us regularly on your progress, and we really appreciated his work on that. So would anyone like to make a motion to move to endorse the ESBC's recommendation for a preferred Elmwood replacement option?
I will make that motion.
Second? Okay, and then a roll call vote?
Nora Kramer, yes.
Mary Jo Lefreniere, yes.
Yes.
Amy Ritterbusch, yes. Okay, thank you, and I'm sure we will hear more from you later.
Yes, we appreciate your time.
So we are going to have a report a little later on the budget.
And capital, yeah.
Capital. And I really would like as many people, particularly from the school, to stay for that presentation, please.
I think they
It's a very important one.
So we were supposed to do the FY22 audit report at 7, but we also posted a 7:15 public information session. Do you think we could push the audit report later, or?
Do we have folks here to do it?
Or can it be, how?
7:15, respectfully suggest you open the public
That's what I think, yeah.
session.
And then do the audit?
And then do the audit and then swim back.
Can we do the audit fairly quickly?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that would.
Okay. All right, so it's now past 7:15. So we're going to open a public information session on the proposed general bylaw amendments. There were 5 different amendments that were listed in the agenda that we are going to discuss and get public comments on tonight. And then, but because we have this audit report, we're going to open the public hearing and then we'll come back to it when we finish the audit report. Is that?
So I'll make the motion to open the public hearing for the information session on the proposed general bylaw amendments.
Okay. And the roll call vote?
Euro Kramer, yes.
Mary Jo? Yes. Irfan, yes. Amy Ritterbusch, yes. Okay, and so we'll do the audit report now, and then we'll come back to the general bylaw amendments shortly. So, thank you. Thank you. There's a very long packet in our meeting packet tonight from you, but you can give us the overview.
Good evening, folks, and boy, I know how to bring a crowd, don't I? My name is Terenzio Volpicelli. I'm a certified public accountant. I represent the firm of Roselli, Clark & Associates out of Woburn and Hopedale, Massachusetts. We were engaged to perform a financial statement audit of the town's financial statements for the year ended June 30th of 2022. You've probably received a number of items from us, including a letter dated January 10th of 2023. That's what's referred to as our required communications letter. I'm not going to read this letter since you already have it, but I am just going to touch upon a couple key items in it. Management, which includes the folks in this room, are responsible for the selection and employing the appropriate accounting policies. Accounting estimates and their related disclosures are an integral part to the financial statements, and the most sensitive estimates that pertain to the town are related to its pension and OPEB liabilities, as well as its allowance for doubtful accounts. I'm pleased to say that we did not encounter any difficulties in completing the 2022 audit, and we did not have any disagreements with management on accounting, reporting, or other auditing matters. Once again, the full context of that letter has been previously provided. It's important to note that our audit, the focus of our audit was the examination of the town's accounts in order to opine on the fair presentation of the town's financial statements taken as a whole. Our audit is not designed to identify, detect theft or fraud. This was not a forensic audit, it was a financial statement audit. The town's 2022 audited financial statements were issued on December 14th of 2022 with an unmodified or clean audit opinion. I'm happy to say that there were no internal control matters or deficiencies observed during the audit that would have required formal communication to this board. The audited financial statements themselves, all 61 pages of them, contain several key sections. One section is referred to as the government-wide financial statements. Those are the full accrual financial statements, and they present the town's operations as if it was a for-profit entity. Then you have what's referred to as the governmental fund financial statements. Those are on a modified accrual basis, and those most closely resemble your internal accounting records under UMAS, the Uniform Massachusetts Accounting System. You have proprietary financial statements for your water and sewer funds, which again are stated as if you were a private organization, say like Raytheon or Dell. We have the fiduciary financial statements, which report your OPEB as well as your private purpose trusts. You have several small trusts for scholarships that the town maintains for third parties. And you have the notes in the financial statements as well as a number of required supplementary information. In the governmental funds financial statements, the town ended fiscal '22 with a positive fund balance of over $62.3 million. This was nearly $11.4 million higher than the prior year. Each major fund within your financial statements reported positive increases to the fund balances in fiscal year 2022. The 2022 results included the issuance of nearly $5.3 million of general obligation bonds, together with premiums. Those had a true interest cost of roughly 3.15%. Additionally, the town's general fund reported increases in its fund balance of nearly $6.4 million, which had to do with positive variances, budget to actual, in both revenues as well as expenses. You would notice in the 22 financial statements there's a new column, the ARPA fund. Just by the metrics, it qualified as a major fund in 2022. So through June 30th of 22, you received roughly one-half of the $5.5 million allocation, and at that time you only spent about $85,000. Those funds must be obligated via a contract or a purchase order by December 31st of 2024 and fully expended by December 31st of 2026. On the current federal guidelines, obligated does not include a plan by management or the select board or town meeting. It means it's a binding contract or some sort of purchase orders, or it's already been expended. So I think that's just important to note as you're going along, because before you know it, it'll be December 31st, 2024. Blink.
Use it, okay.
You got a lot of things on the horizon, Josh.
I have to enter. I thought I heard that the deadline was extended by a couple of months now.
To the best of my knowledge, it has not been extended yet. I think there's been some discussions about it.
Funds, because I've heard a March date, but it doesn't really, in terms of getting the job done, it doesn't really help that much. You really have to have it.
I mean, if you ever got to the point where you didn't have the full plans, we can certainly help you with how to do it the right way so that you won't get any trouble with the feds. Credit rating agencies assess the community's budgetary flexibility by calculating what's referred to as a reserve ratio in your general fund. Your reserve ratio was roughly 17.6% in 2022, which S&P, your credit rating agency, would consider to be very good, borderline strong. In fact, S&P rates your debt AAA, which is its highest rating, which affords you the ability to go to public markets generally at a lower interest rate because of that credit rating. In terms of budget to actual performance on a statutory basis, the town's fiscal year 22 revenues in its general fund exceeded budget by roughly $5 million, with the most positive variance being in property taxes. Expenditures were over $3 million under budget. Town enters fiscal 23, which will almost two-thirds of the way through, with certified free cash of approximately $7.2 million, general stabilization funds of $3.9 million, and other stabilization funds of approximately $4.3 million, and the expenditure of those funds require approval by town meeting. The town's general debt burden at June 30th of 2022 exceeded $67 million. That was roughly 6.9% of the general fund expenditures. The CPA fund spends about $160,000 each year, and the water and sewer debt are funded through water and sewer ratepayers. In addition to the long-term debt, the town, like all municipalities in Massachusetts, faces significant future obligations for long-term personnel costs related to its pensions and to its OPEB. So the town is a member of the Middlesex Regional Retirement System. Therefore, you don't really have any control over your pension liabilities, other than save an adoption of a pension reserve fund that you may want to set up to help mitigate the future costs, future rate increases that might come out of nowhere. Based on their most recent valuation, which was as of December 31st of 2021, that pension system was 61% funded with a target fully funded date of June 30th, 2036. It's highly probable that that number is going to decrease when their next audit comes out for December 31st of 2022 as capital markets in the U.S. and worldwide suffered pretty significant losses in 2022. Currently, Middlesex Retirement forecasts a 6.5% appropriation increase for all of its members that could fluctuate community to community through 2030 and then 4% thereafter. With respect to the OPEB plan, the town's plan is about 10% funded at June 30th, 2020, which for a community of this size, it's slightly higher than the average in Massachusetts, and that's based on your actuary who does probably half of the valuations in the entire state, provided us some of that data. Finally, we want to remind the town that the risks it faces with respect to phishing and network security. Last month, Nantucket was a victim of a ransomware attack. You may have heard of that. Fortunately, they had a very good remediation plan to minimize its impact on operations. You folks have some experience with that, with having to have a disaster in your town hall, and your IT folks had you up very quickly. But we do remind you folks that these are pretty serious risks that everybody faces. Fortunately, Nantucket had a very good remediation plan. They did not have to pay that ransom. They also maintained cyber insurance just in case for something like this. So again,
there's a cybersecurity conference in Milford next week. I'll get you guys the info, but I'm going to go.
I may want to attend that myself. And that's really all I have to report, folks.
Okay. All right, does anyone have any questions about the audit report? It is all in our packet if members of the public would like to read it. And I think you said about 60 pages or so.
It was 61 pages.
61 pages.
That's a lot of fun writing it.
Yeah, I bet it was. It was a great deal of fun reading it as well, but I appreciate your hard work.
We appreciate the work. It was one.
We do.
Good report. Thank you.
All right, any questions or comments on that?
I'm good.
Okay, Irfan, did you have any questions or comments?
No, I'm all set.
No, I really appreciate all this work and having it all laid out for the public to see and read and everything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, now we'll move on to what people I think are here for the public information session on the general bylaw amendments. Okay, and the suggestion here is to, so let's see. So each sponsor will briefly describe the proposed bylaw change, and then we will open it up to public comments and questions on each. We have allotted 30 minutes for this agenda item, but we're starting 15 minutes late, so it seems like we might go over a little bit. But let's start with one that may be an easy one. So is Connor Deegan here, the housekeeping amendment?
Lined up, ready to go.
Thank you. I promise you this will be easy. 2 in 1. So first one being that we were looking over, and because we did the charter amendment to change from Board of Selectmen to Select Board, there is no longer a need for the definition in the bylaws to state that Board of Selectmen equates to Select Board, because it already equates, so it's kind of a useless definition. That just fixes it. And the other piece was just that since we first put in the minutes bylaw, the state actually did come up with what they consider to be a reasonable time for approving minutes, and ours was not in line with what the state was recommending. This just pretty much adds their timelines in, but keeps our normal kind of structure for how it's set up in there too.
Okay, so the new recommendation, I believe, is within 30 days or the next meeting, whichever comes later.
Yep. And our original one was 40.
40, okay. Okay, do any members of the board, start with the board, any board members have questions on those two?
That's pretty straightforward.
Do any members of the public have questions on either of those amendments, either on Zoom?
It's hard to believe nobody came for those
Nobody
amendments.
came for those?
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we can cross those off. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Okay. Okay, and the next one is the leash bylaw amendment. This is something the select board put on the warrant. So the current leash bylaw in town requires dogs to be leashed when off their property between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. only. The proposed changes include removing the hour limitation so that dogs must be leashed all the time, but it has an exemption for guide dogs, hunting dogs, therapy dogs, and dogs used in law enforcement. And also proposed is an increase in fees and fines. Okay. So are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Well, first, any members of the board with questions or comments?
I don't particularly have
Okay. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak about the leash bylaw proposed change? No? Okay. And I don't see anyone on Zoom. Okay, so we can check that one off. Okay, and the next is the short-term rental bylaw. This is also sponsored by the Select Board. This new bylaw would adopt annual licensing requirements for short-term rentals of residential property. It would include provisions including requiring sufficient parking, regular trash removal, and property maintenance, and compliance with health and safety codes. The bylaw would permit such rentals for a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 30 days. Short-term rental of less than 2 days would not be permitted. The bylaw would also include penalties for violation, which could include the revocation of the license. So do any board members have any questions or comments?
I did notice town council worked a lot on it, so I am for whatever they amended, it looked good to me.
Yeah, the town council did mark up this bylaw with suggested changes that are in our packet. Okay, are there any members of the public that would like to speak about the short-term rental bylaw? No? And there's some on Zoom now, I believe. So John Martier? And we didn't say at the outset, but I think a 2-minute speaking limit, like we do for the public comment, should be good.
Can you hear me?
We can. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. I have a question. I just wanted to say that I support this bylaw. I think what happened on Pike Street is like a canary in a coal mine about what could happen in town. And if I put myself in the neighbors around that house and how their lives changed, they didn't buy their houses to have that go on. And I wouldn't either, even though I think a lot of people think it could only happen downtown, it can happen anywhere from what I understand. And I just think there's no reason not to go ahead and try to preserve, some of the reasons why people have moved here. And so I support what you guys what the members have done entirely. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Madam Chair, I did have a comment. Or a few thoughts on this. So, number one, anytime the government is going to step in and restrict rights of property owners, I think we need to take a close look at that. Here, I went on the Airbnb website earlier, and there is a way to complain to Airbnb, and I imagine it's the same with HomeAway and VRBO and all the other ones, where the neighbors can complain and have a property taken off the site if they're not complying with the rules of these various short-term rental companies. I'm not sure that that's even been looked into here. The second thing is, so I think there's a mechanism in place for these kind of situations. The second thing is, okay, so let's assume that we were to go ahead and enact this bylaw. Now we become the Airbnb police. And it's up to the town then to go investigate, find out what the problem is, determine if there's repeat violations, assess fines, assess penalties, try to collect on those penalties. And, you know, it's a whole new area that, you know, we haven't been involved in, that we're now going to be getting involved in. I think the situation at Pike Street is very regrettable, but I think that, you know, there are avenues for addressing those kind of situations just within using the existing rules of Airbnb or VRBO or HomeAway or any of these things. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this bylaw? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi there. Thank you for letting us share our comments on this current bylaw before the town. My name is Amy Komkowicz. I live at 9 Pike Street. I did submit a letter to the Select Board previously detailing my concerns, but I think I just want to respond briefly to Select Board Member Nasrullah about some of the comments he just made. Before I begin, I'd like to let folks know that I actually run an Airbnb in the Berkshires, so I'm very familiar with the rental sites to host these types of short-term stays. I know what it requires. It is a lot of work, and I know personally the impact living across the street from a vacation rental on Pike Street. I live at 9 Pike Street. The suggestion that there is a mechanism in place to deal with, I hate to say bad hosts, but that's I think what we're talking about, for garbage issues, debris in the yard, poorly maintained property, I think is pie in the sky. We had communicated to the owner our concerns about these very issues. There's really zero incentive for any such host to do anything about it. There's also very little incentive from a rental site, should it get a complaint, to do anything about it. I don't believe that Airbnb, HomeAway, VRBO, et cetera, are going to stop hosting a particular home. Why would they do that? They're making money from this property. If there is nothing in the town's regulations for them to fall back on, then why would they start regulating it? All they're asking for is that the property is what is advertised. So many bedrooms, so many baths, and if people say it's a decent stay based on their evaluation, then I think they would do very little in terms of responding to a neighbor's complaint. These companies are in the business of making money off of hosts and their properties in any given location. So that's why we're here, because there is no mechanism for people on Pike Street or any street in Hopkinton to do much of anything. And that's where we found ourselves wondering, how did this happen? The shock of having a vacation rental just kind of pop up was something to get used to, but at the same time, there's really no way to stop them. And that's not what this regulation does. So I think that's something that we need to accept. This is the world we live in. It is an industry that is expanding.
Okay, so if you could wrap up a little bit.
Okay, I'm sorry. Given how much the town has changed since 2005 when I moved here, I think it would be naive to think that we're not going to have a problem with vacation rentals in this town. I think it's just the nature of the beast, and I think if we get ahead of it, because it is the canary in the coal mine, as that previous commenter had said, I think I don't see the harm. I really don't see the harm.
Thank you.
And hi, my name is Brent McKenzie at 10 Pike Street, and I just have a short comment. Amy pretty much covered everything I wanted to say. But I think the language of this bylaw is not onerous at all. It's very reasonable. I would think any law-abiding, rule-following citizen of Hopkinton would think it would be reasonable. I assume the license cost would not be onerous, and it would certainly, as opposed to what Mr. Nasrullah said, I think the town does have a responsibility. The population of the town does have a responsibility to look out for each other when we see this freight train or this prospective freight train coming. So I think the way it was worded in this bylaw, with the thanks to many of you in this room, I think it's reasonable, and I think if people take the time to read it, they'll think it was reasonable, and they'll see how it can prevent the kind of thing from happening on their street in their neighborhood that we had to deal with. I will just add, it has resolved itself next to us. We're not here trying to get that resolved. We fought through this. We don't want everybody else to have to spend 13 or 14 months battling with this kind of thing to get them to comply with town regulations in order to turn it back into something that's reasonable on your street. So anyway, thank you for considering this.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
I don't think there's anyone else for comment. The only thing I wanted to add that I noticed when I was reading through town council's notes, too, that I didn't know if we might want to make an exception for Marathon Week. I wouldn't want to prevent someone who was just renting out their house once a year for a marathon for a charity purpose or something to have to go through the licensing process if it was just a once a year thing. That was just something I wanted to think about. Maybe we could discuss at a future meeting to have an exemption for Marathon Week, but. Okay, so I think we're ready to move on to the next one. So, which is the Gun Club indoor shooting, which was proposed by Seth Marman Ganzian, who I believe is on Zoom. So if we want to liven him up and he can introduce the proposal. Okay, he's muted, it looks like. Okay, can you hear us?
Yeah, good evening, Sideboard and everyone. Thank you so much. On 1/29/2023, I went around my neighborhood and spoke to citizens and, this noise pollution, it's unbearable. It's been going on for 16 years in this town, and I'm the first one I really want. I don't know, maybe somebody else might have made a complaint or whatever. My goal here is to have a bylaw introduced, and that way, people will get peace of mind. This noise pollution, gunshots being fired till like 9:15 on Tuesday, 9:15 p.m. to 9:15 p.m. on Tuesdays. And Saturday and Sunday, those are the only 2 days people get to sit down and relax on the window. When you open the window or the sliding door, all you hear is the gun noise. Do we really need this? Can people not enjoy the planet Earth, the Mother Earth, the way God gave us? Why this noise pollution ongoing in our town? I don't understand at all. So I request the town to consider this bylaw. Protect we the people, babies, animals, and birds from noise pollution. Gun clubs, sports clubs, other entities should practice firing gunshots indoor and stop noise pollution and make the town of Hopkinton enjoyable to every citizens, babies, animals, and birds. I would like to be more specific. Newborn babies, they can talk. A dad or mom take a newborn baby for a walk, although the baby cannot put his or her hand on the ear to stop the noise. It's that unbearable. And we should protect the young babies, newborn babies. We should protect the newborn babies. We should protect the newborn birds. There are no birds in Hopkinton. I couldn't see a bird in Hopkinton because of these gunshot noise. Everything gone. The last 16 years, it's noise. Blow away all the birds. from Hopkinton, or matter of fact, I know about the other towns. In other towns, other towns do have, outdoor gun shooting practice facility, but again, as a country, we all should think about this. We, the people, deserve to live what the Mother Earth gave us, not this artificial gun laws. And so I request, I want this proposed bylaw to be introduced in our town meeting for voting. That's what I'm interested in, and that's what 25 citizens of this community. I went to Wayland Road, few families there opposed this gun noise, and it's just not that. Think about people who want to move into our town. What they do first, they go for a walk on the neighborhood to see how this town is. Is this town good for me to live? So this noise pollution, when they hear this noise pollution, the next minute, okay, where they can do a live without the noise pollution? That's what they think. Okay. People will rent an apartment.
So thank you very much. We do have some people here in the audience that I think might want to speak too. So thank you very much for introducing that about your citizens petition. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak? Okay, go ahead, come forward.
I came in person because this is so important. I was the one on Zoom initially. I just want to say I wholeheartedly support this initiative.
Name and address first.
Margaret Peggy Barton, 13 Sanctuary Lane. And as a matter of fact, I was just really happy to see this because I thought, yay, someone else is taking a step. I moved into Hopkinton 13 years ago, and that gun club or sportsman association, whatever you want to call it, has been the bane of my existence. And I wouldn't have even moved here if I had known about it, but in a way I'm glad I didn't know because Hopkinton is so wonderful in so many ways. But in truth, if I could afford to, I would move away because it's that destructive to my quality of life and my health. It has undermined everything, and you can't rest, you can't relax, you can't focus. It's just all day long, 9 to 9 at night, not continuously, but you never know. It could be for an hour, a minute. The unpredictability of it it's like you don't know when you're going to get ambushed by it. I actually wear these in my house half the day. Construction grade earmuffs. With my windows shut, that's how much it penetrates. The sound of guns is like no other. Every cell in your body flinches, even if you know it's coming. And it's not just the isolated shots. Sometimes it sounds like machine gun fire. And other times you would swear they are blowing up the mountain with dynamite. I don't even know what kind of guns that could possibly be. And the thing is, we have a general legal right to peace and quiet enjoyment of our homes. And I can't think of anything that's more invasive or violating that than they may as well come in the house. It's so invasive. If you can't even enjoy your own home. I forget going out on my deck in the summer like that gentleman mentioned. And so I actually met with am I going overboard? I'll just try to be quick. I met with a couple of the gun owners one time to beg them, just give us one day a week, one morning a week. They virtually dismissed me and said, well, their excuse was, we've been here 50 years, you shouldn't have moved here. And they just, in other words, like, we were here first, like a child would say. And they also accused me of having abnormally sensitive hearing, and their parting advice was, go get some earplugs. So that's what you're dealing with. You can't depend on them to make concessions to the community. So, and also apart from the noise pollution, we haven't mentioned the physical pollution of the spent lead bullets that are over everything, pollute the ground, the water, the air, the birds, and many municipalities are trying to clean it up, and it costs them millions that they're left with, the taxpayers have to do it when it ends up time to clean up. So I really say, it's time to rein them in. They've had like 60 years of the Wild West, and it's not, people live here now. Let's make some concessions and get them to go inside and just put a halt to the damage that they're doing to the environment and also the harm to human health and well-being. So,
Can you remind me what street you live on?
I live in Sanctuary Lane.
Sanctuary Lane, okay.
I don't know what it is as the crows fly, but it sounds like it's right outside my window.
Thank you.
Irfan, you have your hand up. Did you have some? Okay.
Me too.
I just wanted to bring up, so I brought up an issue with gunshots in my neighborhood a few years ago. And I completely appreciate what the petitioner is requesting, and the issue that he's trying to resolve. I don't live near a gun club. It was a private gun I was just shooting outside in the woods, which is even scarier as a homeowner, especially now with little one running around. But it begs the question of where should gun owners go to shoot their guns? There is a right to bear arms. I guess you could argue there's no right to shoot them, but it just begs the question of where should it go? Where should they go? And that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay. I think there was someone in the room that had their hand up. Yep, go ahead, come forward.
Well, I had a question.
Oh, you had a question.
I just have a general question about, has town council had a chance to weigh in on the feasibility of this?
No.
Okay.
Because I know, I had been Googling it, but I'm not an attorney, but
yeah,
it seems to me like it might be grandfathered in.
I think this
the
is,
use.
well, I think there's a lot of challenges with something like this. But.
Hi, good evening. My name is Bob Draper. I'm president of Hopkinton Sportsmen's Association. I would like to make some comments regarding the situation at hand. In addition, there are members here from the Southborough Rod and Gun Club as well as the Woodville Club. And I'm sure that they may want to speak on their own, but since this was directed specifically at Hopkinton Sportsmen's Association, I thought that I should be the one who responded to the questions at hand. Let me begin by saying that whatever decisions you make, you're going to be dealing with 4 gun clubs, okay? There are 4 gun clubs in Hopkinton. There's Southborough, there's Maspinock, there's Hopkinton Sportsmen's Association, and there's Woodville, all 4. So whatever decisions are made are going to affect a large number of people. Let me begin by saying that in each of these circumstances, notification was given to the town through the planning board. Both when the Hopkinton Planning Board was doing the Rec 111, they received a notice of the existence of the Sportsman's Club. When that generated into Mill Creek, both Mill Creek were notified as well as the Mill Creek agent. The Mill Creek agent reportedly put the notification of the Hopkinton Sportsmen's Association in their lease. In addition, finally, Mill Creek is now turned into Windsor, and I honestly do not know whether that rental agreement carried forward or not. Next, there was Hopkinton Planning Board meeting at which we attended, and again the letter was sent to the Planning Board for Chamberlain and Whalen Road, okay?
I remember that.
Both of those are on record. As a matter of fact,
Still have the letter that you brought to us.
Okay, so both of those were received. And also the Toll Brothers resident agent for Chamberlain and Whalen Road. So they are going to have to notify whoever purchases property there that there is an existence of a active firearms club beside them. Now, regarding the animals and the wildlife and the cleanliness of the area, etc. The 3 areas that were permitted, the tennis club, which is now clear cut, the Windsor Apartments, which are now clear-cut, and Chamberlain and Wayland, which are also all clear-cut, have eliminated any habitat for any of the wildlife that the people speak so fondly of. The wildlife in the area actually come from Hopkinton Sportsman's Association. It's 186 acres of absolutely beautiful property, and that maintains all of the wildlife in the area. Now, while other activities are going on, the hawks remain in the area, the blue herons remain on the property, the turkeys, the squirrels, and the songbirds also maintain their habitat on the property and are not affected by what transpires there. And the deer are definitely not affected by any of the things that happen at Hopkinton Sportsman's Association and have been there for years. I'd also ask you to note one other thing. Further on in your agenda, you're going to be making a vote on putting fish in the Hopkinton Sportsman's Association pond for the Hopkinton Police Department in the kids' annual fishing derby, which all the kids in town enjoy, which clearly indicates that our property is well-maintained and great for the benefit of the wildlife in the area, and basically the only piece of property that still exists large enough to maintain all of this wildlife that people like to see. Before I go any further, before anybody asks any questions, I did want to ask if you folks had received the letter from our attorney, Amy, from you. We had the return receipt requested, but I didn't know whether it made it out to the rest of the people. We have return receipt requested.
Did you send it to Town Hall?
It was your Amy Whitty Bush, right?
Yeah.
Select Board, Town of Hopkinton, 18 Main Street, Hopkinton, Mass. 01748.
Okay, so if it came here to Town Hall, did we receive it? Or?
Okay, so...
I did not receive it.
I was afraid this was going to happen. If you don't mind, unfortunately, I do not have a whole number of copies. Does one have to go here, or does it have to go to the... Yeah. Okay. And if there are any legal questions, our attorney is here this evening also, if you guys like to ask anything specifically about that.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like we're doing this semi-annually.
So thank you. It's possible it's sitting in the mailbox downstairs, right? I guess, I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So
this is a similar letter that you've sent when we were on the planning board.
Going further into this, also attached is, or I was hoping that perhaps somebody might have the information available, is the law that relates specifically to firearms. And that's the main reason that our attorney is here. So in the event anybody has a question regarding that, I do not have extra copies of that one, but I'd be more than happy to share with the chairperson, and perhaps you guys should take a quick look at that and pass it around.
Yeah, and the master laws are online too, so I've read it online too.
And I'm sorry, but your back speaker there, it was a little difficult. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the two people who were speaking. Your rear speaker there doesn't quite carry into the back.
Okay.
So if I don't address their questions, I'm sorry. I really couldn't hear what was being said. So if you had any, don't hesitate to ask. And if the other sportsmen's club here are not happy with my answers, you're more than welcome to come forward and either enhance or delete what I've said so far. Nope, so if I can answer any of your questions, I'll be more than happy to. Basically, in the essence of the law, what the people are asking really cannot be done. That's kind of the bottom line of all that.
So I thank you for this, and I had looked up the Mass General Law myself online too, and though I'm not the attorney, so we'll get our advice from our own town council too. But from what I understood online, that you were grandfathered in from having been established so long ago, and that you would not be subject to any noise bylaws.
Basically, we were hoping this wasn't going forward so that we wouldn't have to deal with this further in a legal manner, since it isn't legal to begin with.
Right, but any citizen can bring a petition forward, that's their right per our charter. And so that's a question I guess I have for our attorney too. If this were to pass, would it apply to even, if there were ever another gun club in town, a fifth club? It sounds like it wouldn't apply to the current ones to me. But again, I'm not the attorney, we have to ask our town council on that. And I think we don't have comment from staff yet either, right? Okay, but the citizens have a right to put their petition forward, but obviously we're going to follow the law, and the Attorney General reviews all bylaws that are passed at town meeting anyway. Sometimes they don't even go forward if they pass at town meeting, if they don't meet the state law. Right.
Okay.
Did anyone else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have one question. Do you still have police departments qualifying there?
As a matter of fact, yes, we do. One of them just qualified Monday, as a matter of fact. They called to come out and use the range. That was mentioned in the letter there to Amy. Yes, they do. Your police, not your, the Hopkinton Police Department are the ones who do use the range. We have an excellent relationship with them. They also, just so people are aware, there are hours that are specified within that statute that the ranges have to be open. And they can shoot as late as 10 o'clock at night. We limit the hours to 9 o'clock at night to be well within the law and maintain what peace we can. Also, in terms of opening, the law provides that we could open at 8 o'clock. We do not open until 9 o'clock. So if people ask us to comply with the law, unfortunately, we'd have to start earlier and end later. So that's a matter that we chose to do. As a matter of fact, I think you folks do the same thing.
My name is Jamie Manning. I'm president of the Southborough Rod and Gun Club. And we do the same. We have several police departments that come use our property and facilities for training. And I concur with everything that Bob said. Our club is very, very similar. Our hours are 9 a.m. to sunset. Sundays and holidays, we are 10 a.m. to sunset. But we also do quite a bit of training for police officers in the local area.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do any board members have any questions at this time?
No, none at this time.
Okay. And then,
I just want to make a comment. These people who are saying just make it an indoor shooting. Indoor, I did some looking at this. Indoor shooting ranges are very large and very expensive to make, to build. And these are rod and gun clubs. They're not ranges. They're not indoor ranges. So if we were going to go through this, who's going to pay for these expansions? Because there's going to be huge expansions in all of these gun clubs if we pass this bylaw with no recourse for how to set this up or how to do it.
Let me say something about that. We'll go back to the police department training for a second. In terms of police department training, indoor ranges don't work well because the officers can only shoot straight ahead. You can't shoot laterally. On outdoor ranges, where they have a U-shaped or 180-degree protection, their training requires that they be mobile when they're doing their firearms training. That's the real basic difference between shooting indoors and outdoors, really. Was that your question, or did I miss what you were asking?
Well,
just a
no, my question was basically the expense of setting up indoor fire ranges. I mean, these people just move it indoors. Well, indoors where?
Well, I could speak to that. It would be multiple thousands of dollars to do it, not only to build the building, but HVAC equipment, lighting, heating, etc. And not only that, most people would associate with pistols and rifles, but we also have outdoor skeet and trap and sporting clays. And I have yet to see any of those particular sports done indoors. Anyway.
Okay, so so is there anyone else that would like to comment in the room? Okay, go ahead. You have to come to the table so that I can hear you. Yeah,
other people sit here.
I just wanted to, we're one of the other rod and gun clubs in town, We've been there since 1927. And Sunday, we're open to the public. We have a great amount of people that come in, experience their kids shooting for the first time. And it's outdoor shooting. You cannot bring skeet and trap indoors. It's swinging a shotgun over a safe range. It's just not possible to do what we'll be doing. So we'll be losing pretty much our whole sport, our entire sport. We do have a rifle range. I don't think you can bring a 100-yard rifle range indoors. We're shooting into safe berms. We have the Sherburne police come. We try to be great, neighbors, and that's why we're open to the public. We have a lot of people come down, almost one or two people every week come down and visit us and look it over or shoot. So I just wanted to say we're a third club in town, pretty much the exact same experience as these gentlemen.
Thank you.
I have, sorry, I have another question. Do all of you rod and gun clubs teach how to use a gun to everybody?
Yes.
I mean, I've never held a gun in my life, so, but I certainly want people that do to know how to do it safely.
We offer, at our club, we offer usually every other month training classes for people so that they are trained and can get their license to carry or FID cards.
Yes.
And we host anywhere from 10 to 15 people, usually every couple of months.
Yep. Yep, same for Hopkinton.
Not only that, we host, not that it would affect shooting, we host several Boy Scout troops that they come camp on our property, and we teach them how to shoot trap and how to shoot .22 rifles as part of their Boy Scout experience as well. So we offer a lot of...
So basically, these are not only firearms, these are sportsmen's clubs.
Okay, was there anyone else in the room that wanted to speak? There's a couple more on Zoom too. So do you want to come forward?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm Attorney Keith Langer, counsel to HSA. I sent you the letter. I got the green receipt card, I believe, Thursday. You've obviously read the statute. For the benefit of the people at home and on Zoom, I will very briefly read the pertinent portions to you so the rest of the town can understand the statute we're dealing with and the statute that renders this proposed petition a legal nullity. Section 7B of Chapter 214 reads in part, no owner shall be liable in any action for nuisance, and no court shall enjoin the use or operation of said range on the basis of noise or noise pollution, provided said owner is in compliance with any noise control law, ordinance, or bylaws in existence at the time of the construction of the range. For HSA, that's 1931, before the complainants were even born, still as part of the Hopkinton community. The other relevant portion says, no standards in rules adopted by any state, city, or town agency for limiting levels of noise in terms of decibel level which may occur in the outdoor atmosphere, shall apply to ranges exempted from liability under the provisions of this section. This proposed petition fails accordingly. All these clubs, all four of them, are protected by state law. I would also ask the board to note the irony of people claiming they did not know about gun ranges they're complaining about the noise from. If they're that noisy, how could you not hear it when you were surveying the property? Anybody who had done de minimis due diligence would have spent 2 minutes on Google Earth and seen the proximity of the ranges to the area they were looking to move to. Finally, though I doubt it would happen, let us assume the petition is approved and actually survives scrutiny by the Attorney General. These ranges are all outdoor ranges, and as you've been told, you can't do skeet shooting and trap shooting and sporting clays indoors. They can't afford the tens of thousands of dollars it would take to build an indoor range that even remotely approximates their outdoor facilities, especially with the HVAC, because you've got a cycle of lead fumes, you don't have an issue of outdoors. Let us assume all that went through. The clubs could not afford to do it. If you can't shoot, there's no point belonging to the club. What will happen to the club properties? The exact same thing that happened to the neighboring properties. They'll be clear-cut, there are more housing, more homes, and no habitat, such as the 186 acres HSA provides this town. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. If not, I yield the floor.
I think the only question I have, and we'll ask our attorney too, but it looked to me like the reading of the law that all 4 clubs would be grandfathered in because they were legal at the time they were created. But say a 5th or 6th gun club came to town, they would be subject to the bylaw, correct?
If the bylaw were enacted and approved,
Before they
any
came.
subsequent club coming to town would be subject to that bylaw.
Okay, so I think that is an interesting point. But, okay, so does anyone have other questions?
No, all set, thank you.
And I thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ted Stowe.
Good evening. I'll save the effort, I brought my own
You
stuff.
thought your time up.
Brendan Tedstone, 45 Pleasant Street, Select Board Chair Emeritus. So there's case law on this. 2013, there was a very similar petition that went to Wayland. At the same time, Northborough was going through the same thing. The police decided the Select Board decided to not be involved until everything panned out in Northborough. Northborough, everything passed, went to town meeting, it passed. At that point, the Attorney General overturned it. At that point, the people in Wayland did not pursue it. There's case law to show, that it's just not feasible, and even if it passes, more than likely it's going to be overturned by the AG. And I understand that no one in this room has any power to not put this on the warrant. Everybody has the ability to put a petition forward to get something on the warrant for however silly of a reason it may be, or not. To speak to Mrs. Barton's point about Sanctuary Lane, I grew up on Chamberlain Street, about 600 yards closer to the range. Maybe my hearing's not quite like hers. I slept like a baby for many, many, many years. I'm a member of the Lumber Street Club. The implication that the people, the members there, are from the Wild West is archaic. I just went and qualified for a specific range on Sunday, and it was about a 2.5-hour process of about 2 hours and 25 minutes of it was safety and making sure that you're safe and making sure that you know how to hold the gun and point the gun and make sure that you hit the target that you're shooting for. This is not people that are wearing red hats rolling around in camouflage pants. I know, I have case law that shows that someone went 6 minutes.
I know.
So this is...
Delicious irony, though, to turn off your microphone.
It would.
I was going to say that.
If you think that that's going to stop me, that's darling. I guess in closing, I would say it's unfortunate that you're put in this position for the people here to think that you have any bearing or weight to make a decision on this one way or the other. We don't. It would be no more appropriate in my eyes, for me to put forth a petition next year to ask that the town not allow motorized vehicles to go into those new apartments. And I get 25 people to sign that and it goes to town meeting. It's no more appropriate for you guys to weigh in on that. So I'm sorry that you're put in this position and that there are people here that think that it's under your purview to forward this or not. It's not. But I just wanted to point out that, kind of poke some holes in the petitioner's concerns about I think he said birdies. That's a different club. That's the golf course. So thank you guys for your time. I'll see you in another year.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Brendan.
Peter Thomas earlier had his hand up, but I don't see it now. Aaron Townsley has his hand up, hasn't spoken yet. Oh, so does Peter Thomas. So Peter Thomas had his hand up for a while, so maybe we can have him speak first.
Hi there, Peter Thomas, 215 Pond Street. Understanding the legal challenges that face the select board with respect to this issue, One of the questions that I have for the select board to research and or the gun club owners is, there are commercial sound mitigation technologies that are available for outdoor ranges. They are widely available. There are numerous case studies that show that the decibel levels are reduced significantly. I don't know that the select board can go as far as enforcing that, because that may constitute a noise ordinance. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm wondering that if in the spirit of being a good neighbor, if the gun club owners would voluntarily consider investigating and implementing commercial sound mitigation technology. I live on Pond Street. I live kind of far away, but I can still hear the Woodville Club from my backyard. I also golf, and I can hear the Southborough Club when I golf, and my kids go to school, and I can definitely hear when I'm watching a soccer game from the field. The citizen petition does bring up a point that is not the kind of environment that most people that now live in this town want to raise their children in. And my heart goes out to the woman who wears earmuffs inside her home. That's terrible. So I guess that's my question to the select board, is if there's a way to sort of thread the needle here and ask them and either require commercial sound mitigation without that being constituted as a noise ordinance, and or would the gun club owners like to speak about that?
Okay, thank you.
So just as a matter of process, we can't really add anything to the petition either. I mean, it has to go forward because it's a citizen's petition, but we can't add anything to it.
But the discussion points are
interesting.
discussion
points are interesting for sure.
Yep, and it could be a different petition a future year, I guess. Okay, so Aaron Townsley also has his hand up. It's a little quiet.
Oh, okay.
That's better, yep. Sorry.
Aaron Townsley, 103 Hayward Street. I just wanted to say, we moved to Hopkinton in 2018, partly because we love its gearedness to kind of the outside environment. And I am a member of one of the 5 gun clubs here. I think that these organizations are community organizations that have been meeting places for families and friends, in some cases 60, 80 years. And part of that is having a safe place to use and practice firearms. And if people are going to legally own firearms in this town, I think that having a place to safely use them is important. I think that there is a lot of misunderstanding about what can be done inside versus outside. Talking about the kind of long arms like shotguns that we use for hunting. Those are not something that can be easily used inside as such by others. The hunter safety courses, the state sometimes uses the Southborough Gun Club for those, as do multiple police forces. I think these are essentially very good organizations for the community here, and continue to support them and keep these parts of our heritage part of our town.
Thank you.
We cannot open this.
Okay, yeah, we do have another hearing at 8:45. I think there's just one more person waiting to speak, so I think...
7:45. We just didn't open it.
No, I know.
I'm just looking at the time.
I know we are. So I think I would like to allow the last person who has their hand up to speak, and then we'll open the next one.
Well, okay.
Oh, you think we should open it?
I was just going to say we could vote to open it and then come back to it.
Okay, all right, so shall we vote to open the...
I'll move to open the public hearing that was
I'll
slated to
second.
start at 7:45 and come back to it when this discussion concludes.
Okay, great. Roll call vote? Okay, roll call vote?
Carol Kramer, yes.
Mary Joseph, yes.
Rick Vanderson, yes.
Amy Roderbush, yes.
Sorry, it's a formality.
Okay, so Steve Merriman Ganzian would like to speak again, the petitioner, so if we could... Okay, so if you could just keep it to 2 minutes, and I think we've heard from both sides here, but if you want to wrap up your comments.
Sure. Thank you so much for letting me speak again. I really thank the Southborough members. What one should think in life is, these days, mental health is a big topic in our country. Quiet environment will help all living human beings. That's very important for the society. It's just not adults The children go to school for learning, and they come home and they do their homework. I mean, people cannot keep their windows shut. People cannot keep their doors shut all the time. People need fresh air, basic necessity in life. And on top, like, we can open our doors and windows and still we hear the gun noise inside the house. And what kind of pleasure a human being gets? Family are being destroyed here. And the top priority for the select board or health board members is to protect we the people. We the people trump everything. The new bylaw will help we the people, the birds. It's unbelievable. This is happening for 60 years. And life goes by. All the states in our country should stand up for this. It's very, very important. Basic necessity in life is live without any noise, without noise pollution. This is a developed country. If people can fire gunshots and spend about $10 a shot, maybe they can think about doing that in law.
Okay, so thank you very much for your comments.
We have a hand up.
I know. So, we said there were gonna be one, that was the last comment though, so. You wanna come forward and can you make it kind of brief? Because we're late or off schedule. And I really do appreciate hearing both perspectives on this. I want to say that from the outset. That we are limited by the law. Yeah.
I'm Kim Clark, 24 Mayhew Street. I'm also a member of the Woodville Rod and Gun Club. The first thing I'll state is Windsor does have a little blurb in the lease stating that there is a pre-existing shooting range and they're required to notify them that it's there in close proximity. I've lived in this town for 65 years. I've listened to the gunshots for 65 years. I sleep well. My kids have grown up here through the same thing, never had any issues. And I have plenty of birds at my house. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I think we're going to move on to the public hearing on the comprehensive budget. So the select board will hold a public hearing on the proposed FY24 comprehensive budget, which includes the operating budgets and capital budget requests. The board is seeking comments, questions, and ideas.
Oh.
What?
I wish nobody would leave, because this next part is really important.
I know, but it's important but boring, apparently.
No, we could say something.
Huh?
No.
Okay. Did anyone have any questions or comments on the FY24 comprehensive budget? If so, feel free to raise your hand on Zoom or raise your hand in the room. Sita Marin has his hand up still. Did you have a question about the budget?
I'm sorry, by mistake I had my...
You still have your hand up. Okay, no problem. Okay, so it looks like nobody has any questions or comments about the budget. So the town manager had given us homework and sent us some budget questions. Let's see. And so we need to give some specific guidance on the 5 questions so that they can get the budget. We have to have the budget ready for the 14th to send to the Appropriations Committee. Okay, so pages 1 and 2 of the comprehensive budget message identified several departments that have submitted over target budget requests. Actually, I want to open that back up. Including the Hopkins Public Schools. The Select Board has heard from departments on these requests, and to move forward with the process, it's helpful for the town to know if the Select Board supports the over-target requests, or whether the Select Board would direct some specific reductions to the over-target requests. So should we take that item first? I want to open that document up. Okay, so that's really on page 1 and, I think it's on page 1 and 2 of the comprehensive budget. So do board members have thoughts on whether we...
I definitely have thoughts.
Okay, do you want to start?
Sure. So first, I want to thank everybody, town partners, professional staff, in particular the financial staff, and Mr. O'Leary and Mr. Kamalo. I think we are light years ahead in our ability to interact with and feel like the budget process is truly transparent, and it certainly is a well-functioning machine. So we do it every year like it's our jobs, right, Mr. O'Leary? Yeah. So I want to say that, and I know that we'll talk about this again, but I want to say we talk a little bit about this is the operating budget, and then there's the capital budget. And I know that we're talking about the operating budget first, but in this case, we cannot, well, in all cases, we cannot separate them. So I actually have a math degree and took financial math one time, way back in the day, so I know enough to be a tiny bit dangerous, but you know, I can't interact with these numbers the way that the professionals do. But I want people at home to understand that the decisions that we make, just like at home, the decisions we make on this operating budget this year impact operating budgets in the out years. And we're standing, I know it's Mr. O'Leary's framing that we're looking at a bow wave, and I'm not quite sure exactly what a bow wave is, but I don't think it's a ripple on the pond. I think it's one of those dangerous waves that could disrupt the whole operation of a ship, right? We have this huge capital expenditure request in front of us that is, that if we vote everything in, is going to increase our debt load by like 600%, right? Like it's incredible, right? So we have $73 million of debt today. If we vote Elmwood in, that's another $170 million of debt, so we have now quadrupled our debt load. If we vote Hopkins in, both of those decisions are in front of us, and I know that not the whole amount is in front of us in 2023, but it should be. We should consider the whole amount when we talk about it. We have Hopkins that was estimated at $20 million, it's now estimated at $33 million, so that's $200+ million, and that's before $80 million for the middle school that's estimated now, $20 million that's estimated for a new preschool and a new school administration building. And so far, I'm only talking about school debt. They also have $10 million of miscellaneous capital debt coming forward. And then frankly, there are other departments. So the decisions that we're making in this year and in the next couple of years change our financial picture dramatically. We just had the audit report. We will no longer have a AAA rating. I don't know what we'll have, but we won't have a AAA rating. So we will also not be borrowing this money at any kind of reasonable amount. I guess my big point is that we have to, I said this before at the school committee meeting when we talked about it at the first time, if we embark on this humongous capital expenditure plan, we won't have the flexibility to talk next year about slightly bigger operating budgets than we want. Our flexibilities are gone. Just like at home, if we outspend our means, we will not have flexibilities in 2024 and 2025 to expand our operating budget with any kind of guidelines. So we really need to be very careful about, the word sustainability is really important in financial math, right? We have to make decisions today that literally do not spend every dollar that's available to us. We have to not spend every dollar that's available to us today so that tomorrow we can respond with some flexibility, or next year we can respond with some flexibility to the different priorities we have to know are coming, right? So when we talk about creating a fiscally responsible budget, it has to be one that we can picture sustaining, not just this year, but for the next 5 years and the next 10 years. So our operating budget today is $103 million. The 8% increase is $112 million. Mr. O'Leary showed me a nifty tool that he has designed, and I really appreciate it. If we go 8% this year and we do all these capital expenditures, the average tax valuation is going to go up by at least 2/3. It's between 2/3 and twice, right? It's going to nearly double, and that's with 5 years of capital spending.
Right,
so
just to make sure, not next year.
Not next year, no, not next year. This is a compounded effect. So I really urge us to think in terms of, so the financially sound conservative recommendation that the town gave us was to operate with a 4.4% increase. What the select board voted was a slightly more expanded, flexed 5.1%, which would put us to a $109 million operating budget next year. That's not even what we're talking about, the overage. What we're talking about is the staff has already found a couple $1 million to get us up to a 7% increase, and then we hit a little over $1 million gap. All right, so we are already, before we talk about the $1 million gap, we are already leveraging all of our flexibility this year. It's like spending your $100 grocery allowance in the first week of the month, right? You have to know you're going to struggle in the next 4 weeks. So I am really, I'm beseeching everybody in all the town departments and the select board to really think about that 5.1% number and something, at most, something close to it for this year, so that we can really look ourselves in the face and we can look our neighbors in the face and know that we are really trying to be financially stable and sustainable starting this year. So that's the little bit that I wanted to say at the outset. Question number 1, that was question number 1, wasn't it?
But what was your, do you have specific things that you would like to say?
Question number 1, you asked if I support the budget request representing 8.1%. I do not. I would ask my fellow board members to set the max closer to 6%.
Thank you. Mary Jo, did you have any thoughts on that first question about the over-target requests?
Yeah, no, I have to agree, we really should look and try to get our budgets within the 5.1%. Absolutely.
Okay, Irfan?
Madam Chair, I think, just to answer the question straight up, no, I do not support the over-target requests. I think he said Larry was trying to stick with that. I thank Ms. Kramer for what she just said, because this is, we've looked at what's going to happen over the next 5 years, and while, yeah, sure, we can balance the budget, but at a certain point, it's just going to cost the taxpayer way too much. We're talking about a tax bill going from $12,000 to $20,000, and yeah, I guess I'm not in supporting that. So to answer the question, no, I would not support these over-target requests.
So I think for myself, the problem, when I'm looking through the budget slides, I don't really see very much that can be reasonably cut. Like, so our waste collection fee is just going up. Are we suggesting we're going to reduce, we're not going to pick up trash every week? Or what are we suggesting? Or, we can direct town staff to go back and see if they can get it to under 5%.
So honestly, what I would recommend is a work session where we all work collaboratively. And yeah, no, we're not going to stop picking up trash. I mean, that's sort of never going to happen. But there are places that we are going to have to trim our requests, because we cannot afford them. That's the bottom line, is we can't spend money we don't have.
So I would definitely support a working session to just work all through this, because I was having trouble thinking of things that really we could reasonably cut, yet still maintain the level of service people expect.
So, Chair, when I was speaking with Mr. O'Leary, and we're kind of looking at all these capital requests, so one thing came to mind, which is that, something like the sidewalks, that, there may be federal money available through the infrastructure bill to get that paid for. So as we're looking at this, are these numbers what they will be at the end? I'm not sure. But I think the way that the way to look at it is, this being taxpayer funded without additional resources. But I just wanted to add, some of these things could be funded through alternate sources. I'm wondering if there's a way we could, say, take the sidewalks, if we could.
So that's under number 5 for our homework here, about the 5 capital projects, right? So could those...
So is there a way that we could say, yes, provided that it's funded, through another source?
What is the funding source for this sidewalks? That's, there are 2 sidewalk projects on them.
The sidewalk projects, that maybe the infrastructure though, would need to be working with our state in order to get the funding for it.
In the budget, what are they currently listed as their funding source? CPC?
Borrowing, excluded
Just
borrowing.
completely just borrowing, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And so if those might be available through the infrastructure bill, I think that would certainly help with the tax impact.
Well, we'll take it off our books, and I think that's kind of where I'm going with this, is, I mean, if we can have it for free, then I'm completely in support of it. But, when it comes to being paid by the taxpayers, well, then no. I think, so is there a way we would say, yes, we would do it, provided that it's funded outside?
Okay, and then within, these, still on number 1 here, with these departments that have gone over budget, are there any items within those budgets that are one-time expenses and could be funded else with free cash?
We've looked into that question.
And there are none, or you, sorry.
We've looked into that question. We did identify some areas, we have accounted for them. I think what we're looking for in question 1 is the general consensus of the board in terms of how we get there. We do have processes in place that we've used in the past that we can rely on. In other words, based on what we hear tonight, we will, working together, define a solution and bring it to the board.
Okay. Okay, and then the other one, number 2 on our homework, was if we're comfortable, so the budget as proposed meets our policies by increasing contributions to OPEB and increased funding to the stabilization account and for payment for all recurring expenses with recurring revenue sources. So do we want to continue in full compliance on these financial policies, or for example, are we willing to put less into OPEB or stabilization this year?
I am a yes on all 3, and especially for paying for recurring expenses with recurring dollars. So anytime that you use one-time money for a recurring expense, you're causing yourself problems in the out years automatically. So I'm a full yes on all of those.
So I agree on the 3rd one about the recurring expenses with recurring revenue. I am more open to the idea of reducing OPEB this year and stabilization a little bit. I mean, I regret that we had all those underrides several years ago. I mean, I wish we kind of put more into OPEB and more into stabilization then when we had more funds, but we didn't, and we can't undo that. But I would be willing to do that for this year.
Well, I've been going to town meeting and watching this for a long time, and we've always been cutting OPEB. I think it's time we fund it. I mean, I think we need to fund it, because every year.
We fund it a little every year.
A little, as little as we can. And, that really does, the way things are going and the way that it needs to be funded.
Okay, Irfan?
Yeah, I agree with Mary Jo, it needs to be funded. I'm a no on items 1 and 2. I think we need to stick to our guns about, or stick to our policies rather, regarding contributions to OPEB and stabilization. This is life without new growth. And this is what we're going to be looking at moving forward. And each time we try to play the shell game, OPEB gets left out. And, I think as we were talking about earlier about kind of looking at our financial picture, it's always going to be this way. It's always going to be difficult. And I think it needs to be funded. So, points, first 2 bullets, I'm a no. And on the last one, I'm a yes. Payment for recurring expenses with recurring revenue makes total sense.
I think he meant he's a yes on all 3.
Yes, I think you mean yes on all 3.
I think so too.
Yeah.
You want to keep the increase?
I'm saying that we should stick with our policies on increased contributions and stabilization. Yeah, so yes, okay.
Yep. Okay, the number 3 was the town has increased public engagement in the budget process this cycle through a number of listening sessions. Should we consider additional public outreach now that reviews of departmental requests have been had? I'm just going to have to say we've really had very little public engagement on this despite great efforts, so I'm not sure, if we were doing anything else new, I think it would have to be something different. I don't know what others' thoughts are.
So I think that particularly for the 5-year capital plan, we have to keep trying to engage people in the conversation. But I'm always a fan of, I guess this is my plea to any public who's watching and anybody who talks about it tomorrow. We need to start engaging with this budget process, and the operational budget, yes, but definitely the capital plan going forward. We need to, if the town needs to sort of buy in or not buy in ahead of some of these initial votes so that we know what people are willing to support.
Do you think more public outreach or enough for this year?
Well, I mean, I think we constantly have to try for public outreach, but I don't, when I was looking at Tim's program earlier, it's shocking to see what can happen to us in the next few years. And $20,000 or tax rate, or taxes on an average single-family home is just way out of line for any town or anywhere. And we're at 12,000 now, and they're talking about possibly 15% to 18, and then further out 20. And I don't know how I'm staying here. I'll be honest with you. It's just going to be outrageously expensive for the taxpayer if we go with all of these big budget items as we go along out. It's not going to be this year. It's not going to be next year a little bit, the following year a little bit, but then all of a sudden the borrowing kicks in, and like 5 years out, it's going to really hit us badly.
And for a long time. And for a long time.
And for a long time after that. So if anything else comes up, we're not going to have it. We're not going to be able to do anything in the future for a long time.
So the question before us though right now is, so do we want to do any more public listening sessions or other outreach between now and town meeting? There is the Know Your Vote that would hopefully happening in April. But specifically what?
Through the chair, I'd like to just say, yes, we need to do more public outreach. As we mentioned at the beginning of this question, we've had very little public engagement on this message. And I think the public needs to be engaged, because the way it's going to be presented at town meeting is piecemeal, right? Each capital project comes up without really putting this all together. So, yeah, I think we need more public outreach. And I think we got to figure out how to get people to attend.
Make brownies or something.
I was gonna say, but I guess, how are we gonna do that? We have tried, so we can, maybe we can talk about it online. We have tried and people have not attended.
I do think that we should put our thinking caps on and try and do a couple things, but people.
We need to engage public.
We absolutely do.
I know, but we can say that, but if we're not, but we've tried and not actually engage the public, so I don't know. I'm not saying we should give up, but I don't want to just keep saying we're going to engage the public and not have a concrete plan.
Yeah.
That's a fair point.
Okay. So do we want to carry that over to the next meeting, or do we want to schedule something? So we're here at the end of February. We have 2 full months before a town meeting. We have our, yeah. So do we want to think about it between now, this meeting and the next meeting, and determine what kind of public outreach we want to try next?
Yes.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay. And then the budget has this is number 4, clear focus on, by way of capital requests that can only be achieved as debt exclusions. There's been discussion on the tax impact of those. So we, is that the same as 5 there? So number 5 is, let's see, enclosure 5, hold on.
What's question 5?
So,
yeah, considering.
So we're talking about the over budget, the over 5.1 requests.
No, this is about capital.
If I may?
What's it?
If I may?
Yep. The 5 debt exclusions?
Yes, question number 4 is looking specifically at the 5 debt exclusions.
For this year.
For this
year.
Okay.
And then thinking about the next question, it then says, depending on what happens with question number 4, are you then comfortable with the combined tax impact of 2.9 within the levy? So in other words, we're bringing these two together now.
Okay. So the 4 requests, or the 5 requests are the Chestnut Street sidewalk, AMC Park sidewalk. Those are combined into one debt exclusion, it looks like.
There will be 2 separate questions.
2 separate questions. Okay. Fire Station 2, engineering and design, Hopkins Public School HVAC renewal work, Hopkins expansion, I think that's just the design for it, and roadway paving for Fruit Street Fields and Evergreen cemeteries. So I guess, I think Irfan suggested earlier, if any of those could be funded with the federal funding, that would be great. If the sidewalks, for example, then we could maybe, will we have to still vote them on the warrant if they would be just have a different funding source?
Yeah, here's the preliminary response. Securing federal funding for these projects will take a long time. We will not know the answer by May.
Okay, so we could move them to the following year, perhaps?
Perhaps.
Okay.
But through the chair, if we approve an item, let's say we approve the sidewalks at town meeting, and federal money does not come through, is the town now obligated to move forward with the sidewalks pursuant to a town meeting vote at the taxpayer's expense?
Yes.
Sorry, say it again.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
So if we were to condition it, is there a way to condition it so that if we don't get the federal funding, then we don't have to vote?
Then perhaps the vote does not mention an appropriation by the town.
Okay. So it could indicate support for the project without a town appropriation?
But then it doesn't have to be a ballot question because you're not,
Exactly.
yeah,
Okay.
you're not appropriating any money.
So I really like sidewalks, but I do understand it is a tight budget year, so if we were able to get federal funding, can move them to a future year or something, that would be great. So, but I guess I would be happy to hear from the public on sidewalks too. But if there's another way to pay for it, I think that's great.
I just, Irfan, the meeting that we were at with you, didn't we sort of say that all of these capital items really come to a drop in the bucket? It's the big number items that we really have to look closely at.
Yes, absolutely, but I guess my point is, we have to start to learn how to live without new growth. And I think this is part of it. So it's not only looking at the big ticket items, but looking at the small items and saying, hey, we need to live within certain limits.
Okay, so are there any of the other of these items that would be excluded from debt that we would think we might postpone? Like the fire station 2 design for $70,000, I feel like we should go forward with that. That gets the ball rolling on that, and it's not a very big expense. The Hopkins School expansion, I think that's just the design too, and it's mostly funded from the School Stabilization Fund. So I feel like that's the next step to kind of, in addition to the Elmwood School, getting that ball rolling to increase the school capacity as needed due to the new growth. So I would be in favor of keeping that on there. The roadway paving, I guess I'm not sure how necessary that is, or if some of it could be postponed. We'd have to ask the DPW, I guess, their opinion. And then I've gotten questions from the public on the school's HVAC work too, so I don't know if the schools might be able to speak to what that is for. Is that HVAC for all the school buildings, or?
It's for the Hopkins School and partially for the high school.
Hopefully people can hear you if you're sitting back there, but I can never be sure.
Sitting still all evening, so you can move.
So the HVAC articles is for the Hopkins School and the high school.
And people I heard from were surprised how expensive it was, but so this is, and they mentioned solar in what they had read too, but it's not that you're removing the HVAC because you want to do solar. It's the HVAC, I assume it's because the HVAC is old and needs to be replaced.
It's end of life, it's not,
okay.
It's not at all solar.
Okay, there was something that they
Not related.
No, that they might be considering putting them on the ground so that you could put more solar on the roof later. Is that the case?
The solar's been installed.
It's been installed.
So it's
okay.
already on the roof.
So I'm not sure where they read that then. Okay. All right.
Can I ask?
So these are end of life, and I certainly wouldn't want to. I would like everybody to have heat. Go ahead.
I do like heat.
Yes.
Yeah. The HVAC, is that a piece of the work that's coming forward in the next 5 years, or is that all of the work that you projected for HVAC systems in the next 5 years?
No, that is just a piece of the work. So what you have is both the Hopkins School and the high school came online about the same time. So you're running to an end of life of all that HVAC for both of those buildings. So it makes sense to start picking at that and taking some of the systems annually.
So in the next 5 years, what is the HVAC total? I have it here somewhere, but you'll find it faster.
Yeah, I don't know.
4.1, right?
Right. But in any year, the decisions are made annually in terms of both the condition and.
So I totally respect that, and that's part of the problem that we're facing, is that we talk about these things in incremental chunks, and what is facing us right now is a different kind of big picture than we've ever faced before. So, I took some time today to just make sure I got my head around it, and the total for the schools going forward, help me out, Mr. O'Leary, in the next 5 years, what are the projected capital costs?
It was Madam Chair, it was $297 million over the 5 years.
But that's different because...
But I got an updated sheet today with different numbers. A couple went up substantially and one went down. And I haven't summed the net change from today's update yet.
So so let's call it 300 million just for, is that right? That doesn't include, for example, Loop Road other major repairs, the HVAC system,
It
technology.
would, yes ma'am, it would include all that.
It does include all
Yeah,
that.
what it doesn't capture is the revised number for the Hopkins, the revised number for the Elmwood, the revised number for the preschool, which is now being called the Marathon Edition. And then the middle school came down 5 million, which is, which is good. But the net increase, it's still rising in this iteration.
So what is the net increase then about?
I haven't, I just got it today, and...
Okay, all right.
And we don't know how much of this MSBA reimbursement is going to be on that big new number that was endorsed.
Right, so that's the only thing that gets the MSBA reimbursement that we're talking about is the Elmwood School.
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing else qualifies for MSBA.
Nothing else is in that pool at this time.
Right, so maybe the reimbursement balances out the change that you're receiving today a little bit, just in terms of conversation, right?
So my sense is that these changes could be a 10% or 12% rise on the list from what we were talking about yesterday.
Okay, so if we're talking $300 million, that's the school's needs. All the other town departments combined, if I'm right, came out to like 24 million over the next 5 years.
A little more with the center school. The center school was at
So
20
I
million.
left the center school hanging
Okay,
out, but
right.
I'm happy rolling that in. So
Yes.
that would be $43 million.
Yes,
All right, and then Elmwood, something's going to have to happen with Elmwood, but that might not necessarily be an expense. That might be something that might be an asset that we discharge. We have no plan. We don't have a plan in that regard. Right?
There's no expense or revenue for that in there. Don't have a plan in this here to sell it for money, and we don't have a plan to spend any money on it. In the 5-year.
Yeah, in good conscience, I couldn't just throw another $20 million on there, but that's a big expense coming forward. And then not for nothing, we have the existing $70 million we don't want to forget about, because that's not going anywhere. That's coming forward with us too.
Yes, ma'am.
So here's my thing, is that we actually have to get some rigorous creativity and work together. I've done this job before. I don't think I've ever lost sleep, and I'm losing sleep over this. I don't think that it's tenable. It's not tenable. We can't do all this. And if I know that the school is the biggest department, and so they get most of the heat in this conversation, and that's not necessarily what I mean. Is that this whole town has to find a way to go forward with all of our services intact, and our taxpayers intact. And frankly, there isn't a person sitting in this room that has put forward these numbers that believes that our neighbors are going to be able to stay in this town. Some of them, sure, but a lot of our neighbors are not going to be able to stay in this town. Marilyn and Randy Kramer moved from 39 North Street because they decide that I'm done with paying these kind of taxes, or I'm worried that my property values are actually going to start to collapse because of the debt. There's going to be a little family with children adding to your school numbers, and that's going to happen all over town. But that's not even the biggest problem. We love kids. We want to educate them. The biggest problem is we're going to lose our neighbors, right? The diversity across all spectrums is important, and we're not going to have diversity of socioeconomic. It's already a struggle to hold on to people that don't have the resources that maybe the rest of us do sitting in this room. Certainly age diversity, people are going to start to move. I just think that a $350 million capital plan over 5 years is not actually a plan. That's me. I'm sorry. I know I'm not going to be very popular in the morning. Facebook is going to blow me up, but...
Okay, so specifically to Norman's question about the excluded debt.
So for this year?
For this year. There's 5 items. And it seems like, do we have consensus that the sidewalks, if they can be funded elsewhere, that would be great? We could remove them for this year? Or not remove them, but list them not as a debt exclusion.
I'm just going to say yes, but also $1 million doesn't solve our problem.
Not even close.
No.
But it's, sure.
But Norman needs specific feedback, I think. the
Yes,
staff.
so my specific feedback on the capital projects is that yes, some of them need to be deferred, and we need to think about them all together, and put together a plan that actually we believe in. I mean, if we spend $800,000 to design an expansion at Hopkins, we're going to spend the next $35 million to build it. So we got to consider that when we're voting the $800,000. When we vote $80,000, I can't remember the number for the fire station, we have to think about the $5 or $6 million it's going to cost us. It's the only thing that we can do to be responsible.
Through the chair, I support deferring some or all of these proposals to manage the multi-year impact.
Mary Jo?
Well, to me, the multi-year impact is probably the most important part of this discussion. As I looked at Tim's program, it was mind-boggling to see what was going to happen. And we're leaving ourselves open for no big emergency money. If we should ever have something that we need some really big money for, we're not going to be able to borrow it. And we're going to have a lower bond rating, and that's going to up our interest on top of everything else. And we really have to do something now to save ourselves 5 years from now.
15 years from now.
15 at the most, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely support in general the idea of moving some of these projects for more years forward, so that it's not such the big amount in 5 years. But aside from the sidewalks, I would support going forward with the other projects outside the tax levy limit, because people can vote on them individually at the ballot and at town meeting. But I do agree that we need to mention that the fire station is just, the design is just the beginning. Later comes the full expense for building it, and the same for the Hopkins School. This is just the design, later comes the bigger expense for the actual construction. But
and we can't, I know we don't talk about Elmwood until the fall, but we might as well talk about it in May. We're not voting it, but it's not here, one of these 5, but it's the big gorilla.
Yep. Okay, and underneath growth has been mentioned several times here, but I feel compelled to say too that it's not that this is what happens when there's no new growth. This is what happens after new growth. We had a huge amount of new growth. We brought in a huge number of homes, number of residents that need schools, they need services, DPW, fire, police, and everything, and there's a cost to that. And I would like in this budget tool, I think I mentioned this to Mr. O'Leary too, the great spreadsheet he has, that we have there's a tool where you can adjust how much new growth you might have each year, but I would also like to know, each time we have new growth, I know the superintendent has shown us when she gets 20 new students, it's an average of 1.2, I believe, staff members, and I would like to know from the fire chief and the police chief, when we get 100 new houses, how many more officers and police cars and all that we need each time, and how many more trash pickups we need. I mean, just because I want to make sure we have the full picture when we are adding the new residential growth. What else it brings in the years to come.
I totally agree, Amy.
So.
I totally agree.
Okay.
We've tried, right? We've tried, but we have to get better at it.
Yeah. Okay, and then, all right, the last question was, is there any more information we need to evaluate the budget? We've talked this to death now, so.
I know, you know what, really people, the public just needs to weigh in on what they're willing to support and sustain, and what their ideas are for thinking through solutions that are really sustainable, what they value in this town. I know we all value education. I value it. I have voted every time to support schools and school building projects, and I've been the beneficiary of those projects too. I mean, full disclosure, right? And I want everybody's kids to be the beneficiary of those amazing schools. So these are really hard conversations to have, because the little guys the kids are here and we're trying to educate them, but and we need to make space for them. But I actually don't know. I don't know the answer. I wish I had a magical answer, but I don't even know if we can afford to to do $178 million. I mean, do we have to rethink the Elm School project and expand on the site? Can we do that more economically and more environmentally safely and at less expense? I don't know. I just don't know if this town can sustain this kind of debt burden. I just don't.
Okay, so if we have additional thoughts, I think we can email town staff about that before the next meeting, and if you have any brilliant new ideas for outreach, send those in and bring them to the next meeting, too. Okay.
Do we have a number that we're aiming at for the town partners for the increase, since we didn't support the 8.1? Did we center on a number that we're aiming at?
So originally, we asked for 5.1, right?
Yep.
So is that the number we are still asking for, or are we going up to 6%? Well, I think at least one person said that.
That came out of my mouth, so I'll own that one.
Okay.
So I'm in favor of staying on 5.1.
I am also.
Okay, and I would be comfortable with the 6%, but that brings us to a tie, so it doesn't really help.
Yeah, well, I think that, look, there's a lot of space between 5.1 and 6, and it's, it's like, I don't think it has to be exact, but well, this is me speaking, right? So to my fellow board members who said 5.1, if it came in at 5.3 or 5.2.5 or something, I just hope that we can continue having, we can have the conversation somewhere in there, but I appreciate that you're asking for that to drive towards the 5.1.
Okay.
And I agree with that. I mean, I think we should be driving hard to get to the 5.1 or as close as we can.
Okay, with some flexibility. Okay. All right, and the Boston Marathon has been waiting here very patiently.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we are going to be considering a parade permit for the 127th Boston Marathon.
Thank you, Dottie, for being to my right, and I'm Jack Fleming from the BAA, 1 Ash Street, right down the road. We have a very similar presentation for this year's Patriots Day race, 30,000, same field size as 2022. Very similar presentation in the past, as in the past. We have 47 days to go. Thank you, first of all, for being the most wonderful hosts in the world of the world's greatest road race. Our objective is to put on an entirely safe community, family event, of course, with an element of sports and competition involved in it too. So, but our objective is really to put on a race together that so many people, especially the town of Hopkinton, can take pride in. So whether it be the Hopkinton Marathon Committee, town administration, fire department, police department, recreation and parks, schools, public works, my gosh, all the volunteers that go into it, and so many others. So what's new about this year's race? Lauren, Dottie will assist me in talking a little bit about that. We've, this year, put greater resources, time, energy, effort into some elements of the start. We've been working on more attention to the start since, December 1st of 2 years ago, and excited to share with you some of the pieces of our plan tonight.
Should we put the new map of the common area on the screen? Would that be helpful?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's on page 117 of our packet, I think.
Yeah, and this is a step towards what will be the 100th Boston Marathon starting in Hopkinton, not next month, but next year. Step towards that.
Oh, so this map is not, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. So this map is not for 2023? It always,
It's
sorry.
just a step toward, every year it's a progression as we work
This is
to
the
get better.
first iteration of a bigger
even
initiative.
More changes the following year, okay.
There will be some additional changes coming for the anniversary year next year with the 100th anniversary of the start meet at Hopkinton, and the majority of the changes that we're showing you this evening will stay throughout, and we will add on in terms of programming and perhaps experiential, what we would be doing programmatically at the start. But structurally, this is a really big step for us, and we've worked with a lot of folks to make sure that this is right for the town of Hopkinton and the Boston Marathon. So we can certainly go to that first slide, and I can go through some of the high-level changes. Oh, it is up there. Okay, sorry, thank you. What is also in your packet is we are looking to really do a refreshed look and feel of the Boston Marathon start. We want a design that really replicates and mirrors and nicely bookends what we have done in the past, at the finish line. So the start line structure is on the next slide, but we can go to that in a second. The start line structure will hold 200 plus people in a combination of seating and standing room, as well as new for this year, we'll be including ADA seating. So there'll be wheelchair ramps that'll allow wheelchairs to get into the structure and have the same experience as the guests that we've had so far. The bleachers are the same bleachers that the Hopkinton Marathon Committee has introduced to the structure, so we'll be incorporating that into the design. We've worked very hard with the Hopkinton Marathon Committee to make sure that the experience and the sight lines are unobstructed from anyone either sitting or standing in the start structure, as it were. And then we'll also be providing some additional coverage and some green room space for the starters for each one of the rays, and really looking to enhance the programming that is done on the start stage as well. Also new to this year, you'll see up on the map of the purple area, we've created a public viewing area which allows for 800 plus people to be sitting or standing. There's also room for an expanded area for our vendors that we have partnered with year over year. So we've had somewhere between 5 and 10 vendors that have been on the common, so there'll certainly be space for those vendors, and that area can expand and contrast based on interest. What you'll see here on the Hopkinton Common is really trying to create a equitable experience for all of our pro athletes. Historically, different groups have been in different spaces, and we want to make sure that all of our pros are experiencing the same. So for our wheelchair athletes, they're experiencing the same as our ambulatory athletes. So you'll see here that our pro men and women are in the top left-hand corner of the map you're seeing. Our adaptive athletes, which is one of the largest adaptive athletes fields in any of our majors, are similar like-minded events, and then our wheelchairs are also housed on the same space. So they'll have flooring, there'll be heat, there'll be coffee, tea, and beverages for all athletes, and again, they'll have the same experience as if they're a pro athlete, pro men, pro women, ambulatory, or in a wheelchair. And so additionally, we are working to make sure that the media is in a more condensed area to really control how we tell the story of the start line itself. And then if we could go to the next slide, we can go into the start line structure itself.
Can I ask a question about the previous slide, though, before we go in?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I'm seeing, so the purple area is public viewing areas, public can go, and the yellow is restricted area, people can't go. The gray areas?
That's the road.
That's the road itself.
And so the public can still come on the road and then go into the purple area?
Absolutely. So the pathway for the public to get into the spectating area is almost identical to what it has been in the past, both on either side of the street. What we're doing here is we're creating a barricade around the public barrier to keep the pros a bit separate and different. But we have worked in terms of what that capacity should be. And again, we're hovering around 800 people that will comfortably fit in that space. So that's giving every person about 5 to 6 square feet of space. So we are not following COVID guidelines, but it's comfortable. It's not shoulder to shoulders. And something that I'll also point out that's tough to say here, but all of the pro athletes will travel up to the top right-hand corner. They will take a left in that restricted yellow zone and enter the street. So that public viewing area will have a front row seat to all the pro athletes coming down Marathon Way and getting into the corral. So that's a new experience that we've never been able to create in the past, because the pro athletes were coming from the Korean Church, over the Center School, or St. John. So we're creating a consistent broadcast moment, if you will. So it's much more programmatic. And we're showing that on TV.
All right, and so the public will still be able to come from Main Street, Hayden Row, and Ash to get to the purple areas?
Yeah,
Okay,
so we're not
perfect.
restricting the public access pathways that we have in the past. We're just creating this area for them to stand specifically so they can actually be closer to the pros that they've been in the
I
past.
believe it's a greater opportunity.
Okay, sounds good. It just, I walk up there every year, so I'm just curious to see.
Absolutely, yeah, no, it's a great question, and I'm happy to go into more details. I'm trying to be
Thank you.
cautious of
I
time,
appreciate
too. So if we could go to the next slide, so showing the new structure that, again, we've created and worked on with all of the partners we've listed so far. So again, you'll see that the bleachers used in this structure are the 3 bleachers that have been used in the past. We have talked about the covering that will be I'll call it a permanent structure versus a tented structure in the instance of inclement weather. So this will give us an opportunity to brand and highlight really where the wave starters or our announcers will be speaking. And then again, you'll see on the back side of the structure, we are creating a wheelchair ramp to allow anyone with ambulatory issues, and of course anyone can use the ramp to get, again, access this space. So we will be, perfecting these drawings, and we'll be happy to share as we make any updates to branding to make sure that we're in line with what we've done in the past. But again, this structure that you're seeing here will be able to accommodate 200 plus people, both seated and standing. But again, the same seating capacity will be provided as we have in years past. The next slide is really just a different angle, but I would like to relinquish my time to talk to the Marathon Race Committee and have Dottie speak to her thoughts.
Well, there's been several renditions to this design, and I just have to commend Lauren working with us because we wanted to, what was really important this year is to really include everybody and go and taking that forward to have wheelchair accessibility. It's something that we haven't had before, and to see somebody in a wheelchair, one in particular on our committee, sit in front on a sloped area. Now this is going to be more professional, a built-out design that's going to be elevated, so when people are sitting in that front row, they're not going to have people in front of them blocking, whether it's volunteer or a photographer or something like that. I mean, it's really going to suit the needs of that area, I think, to a large degree. One of the other things that we wanted to have implemented is to have seating. When the first design came out, it was full standing, and that's not conducive to what Hopkinton is. People come out early. They like to hang out for a couple hours and get their seats. So even though we know from experience that people are in and out of this vicinity, for the most part, people get there early. And I anticipate a real interest, being that this is going to have a more professional look for years to come. We worked with Lauren and the BAA on different issues just to incorporate everyone, and I think this design in its final drawing best exemplifies what everybody brought to the table. So I think in the days, I mean, we brought the bleachers to Hopkinton years ago. Now we're going to see this a step up, even though the marathon it's the Marathon Committee space or whatever. It's being elevated to a much more like professional look, and as we look to celebrate in another year's time the 100th anniversary of the start of the marathon, this will be a premier seating area that I think will be visually nice, but also hold the capacity that we're looking for and include everyone and not just a certain few. So it's a diverse group is now encompassed into this design, and people are able to participate whereas other years, maybe on a sloped area, or try and find a flat area, this is going to be a much better seating area that will work for Hopkinton.
Only end with, it's been a pleasure to work with the Hopkinton Marathon Committee. It's been a wealth of knowledge. You all know your start line best. We're trying to make sure that we're providing the best possible structure that's inclusive to everyone's hopes and desires. So it's been a process, but it's been a very good one and a very collaborative one, I would hope and think.
All right, thank you. Are there any staff comments or board member comments, questions?
I just want to, first of all, right, this is such an incredible event for the town of Hopkinton, so I thank everybody who's been involved for all the years that you've been involved and the ways that everybody works together to make it an amazing success. I want to, particularly call out the Marathon Committee and Dottie. I think Dottie's been on it longer than I've lived in town, maybe, right? And it's an extraordinary, the Marathon Committee is really unique. It's an extraordinary thing that that committee does each year to pull off this professional event as a big team of volunteers in town, and the collaboration of all the town departments and so forth in the BAA is incredible, right? It's just incredible. So I appreciate that we're all still sort of working together. I know that, I think Dottie probably brought the bleachers forward the first time, right? So this is just another iteration, improving on a good idea that you brought forward. And I hope that we'll continue with the traditions and having some local heroes and so forth represented at the start. That's a very valued and wonderful tradition. And I also really appreciate that it's more accessible, right? It's more accessible for everybody. And I don't know, is this more people being able to see from that sort of start line vantage point?
As of right now, it's identical. So once we move forward with the designs and the drawings for all, we can do a capacity study. So we know with this design, we're able to accommodate what we have in the past. We may, with the additional platforms around the bleachers themselves, have some additional standing room. So that, I don't want to go on record with that capacity number right now, but it's plus what we've been able to provide in the past.
Anyway, obviously I'm excited and appreciate everybody's hard work. It is, again, I said this before, on the school building committee, your committee, I know it's really a charge to get on there and everybody wants to do it. Not me, it would scare me, like what you guys do. I'm happy to help, right? I'm happy to be given a task, but to think about organizing that whole, bringing all those resources together.
So many logistics.
Organizing that whole event year after year so smoothly and so capably for us. We really appreciate it. And we certainly appreciate the BAA still being part of the town.
Thank you.
Joe, did you have anything to add?
No. Well, if I ask my question, I think it sounds a little strange, but I was in charge of elite security from the 100th on until I resigned to do this. And my only question is, the elites are going to a tent on the common, right?
That's correct.
Where's the warm-up area?
Great question.
Yeah.
We're going to use Ash Street. Thank you for helping to secure that. So on the other side, on the south side, this time, Ash, back and forth, small
And
area.
Ash Street's going to be secured?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly right.
I was gonna say, I think I saw it. The warm-ups here, I think. Is that what you're asking about, the warm-ups? I think it's there.
Yeah, I always worried about that area, because I used to have to caution tape off all of Claflin Street, and there were people that wanted them to sign quilts, and, I mean, the people we had to keep out of there, and the worst were the press.
Yes.
They just...
And that goes to that penned-in area for the press now. We're trying to keep that a bit more contained. And I would be remiss to not thank the folks in the room that really do help us, in addition to police, fire, DPW, Public Works.
Thank you.
You all make our job.
And I know we've got Adam Lavoy in my old job, and he'll do a good job.
He's great. He's terrific, yeah, very much so.
Well, I think too, there's so many people involved, but you have, without your public safety officials, and some of the DPW, there's so many elements that people take for granted and think that this just happens. I mean, all of a sudden, the streets look great, security's at max, you have your police and fire working together for half a year more, just lining out their security and emergency plans. I mean, there's so many elements underneath that the visible eye just doesn't see. So I too want to commend the departments that we are so, like, to be on, to work with the Marathon Committee. They do a superb job, and, you know, kudos to police, fire, DPW, the schools. It's really...
Yeah, but that's really the sign of success, that it
And
looks
that's the
seamless.
nice thing about it, what everybody
So coordinated.
loves about
Yeah.
it. Everybody works together, and it's one goal, a great event, a flawless start, like I say. And, you know, it's just amazing, from the town manager's office, about selectmen. I mean, it's just, so many people work together quietly and sometimes under the radar, and then all of a sudden you get to race weekend and then all the buzz, and everybody wants to be part of it. And then it all elevates to this wonderful and spectacular worldwide event. And
No, we really appreciate all the work that you guys put into it, all the town departments. And
Well, I just want to just bring up one little thing that just, the first year I heard the weight, I was astounded, is Judy Patassi's group that collect all the clothing. Tons. 35 tons 1 year of clothing. And, you know, she has big brother, big sister in trucks, and she coordinates her team. And to me, that is a huge number, and it was a big shock that they were able to get that much tonnage of clothing and give it to a good cause eventually. So it's just an example of one of the things that the Marathon Committee does behind the scenes.
It weighs more when it's raining.
Yeah,
It weighs more when it's raining.
Oh, well, it weighs a lot more when it's raining, that's right.
Okay, so I think we need a motion, right, to approve the parade permit. It's not in the motions, but we know how to do it, right?
Please.
Okay,
I'll
so...
make a motion to approve the parade permit for the 2023 Boston Marathon.
Second.
April 17th, 2023. Road closures beginning at 7 a.m.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So, wait, we need a second and then a vote?
Yeah,
Second, okay, roll call vote.
Mary O'Haver, yes.
Thank you.
Mary Jo LaFreniere, yes.
Okay, Amy Ritterbusch, yes. All right.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you
Thanks
very
so much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being patient, we really appreciate it. Okay, and next we're going to consider acknowledging and honoring and celebrating Ashland's history in the Boston Marathon. So 2023 marks the 100th anniversary of the last time Ashland hosted the start of the Boston Marathon. And is Tim going to come up and speak on that, or I can, a little bit?
Your persistence
Okay.
is
So you mentioned this a little bit.
substantial.
What's that?
Your endurance and persistence.
Oh, boy.
Not a sprint.
Okay, so you introduced this idea a little bit last week, and we've had a meeting in between.
We did. You know, the next year is the 100th anniversary of the start being moved to Hopkinton. So Jack Fleming reminded me that this is the 100th anniversary of the last race starting in Ashland. Their role, role, but also their position within marathon history is substantial. The race, when it came here after the Olympics started there, and I think they get short-shifted in terms of their contribution to marathoning. So the idea would be for Hopkinton to extend, create a celebration to acknowledge their contribution to marathoning. And we've talked amongst, in and around, and Mary Jo and Amy were involved in a meeting, and Norman were involved in a discussion with the town manager in Ashland. It would be terrific if the Select Board in Hopkinton would invite your colleagues in Ashland to participate in this event, and we're ready to move forward and create it and pull it off.
It's not on the agenda, but I think we'd even targeted a potential date, right?
We did, April 6th.
April 6th, yeah, at the HCA.
At 6.
6 o'clock. So I think what we're looking for tonight is just allowing me to send a letter inviting the town of Ashland to participate in this with us, and we'll contact the historical societies in both towns and see if they have, artifacts from back when it was in Ashland, photographs, newspaper articles, and we'll do some presentations at the HCA.
And for those of us that have been in the community for a while, the serious competition over the years between Ashland and Hopkinton, probably about time to do away with some of that. It's great to have a football game and that sort of thing, but we hope that this is an expression of the fact that we're in a region now, you all deal with these regional issues. We have a lot in common with Ashland, a lot in common. Pressure on budgets and so on and so forth. So I think it'd be a lovely gesture to move forward on this, and we're prepared to provide the resources, both through human capital and financial capital, so there's no expense to Hopkinton.
And we have on the program our Select Board Chair welcoming everyone to Hopkinton, and our Marathon Committee Chair, Dottie, will also be speaking, so celebrate our own too.
Will there be wine? Asking for a friend.
There will be. Hopkins Center for the Arts is an ideal place to host this. They'll manage all the arrangements that night, and there will be.
I'm really being a tiny bit facetious, but the events are always kind of lovely, and this is a wonderful opportunity to sort of bring the two towns together who share a little bit of Start history, right? And history is important and connection is important, so it's a beautiful idea. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And it was actually really nice, I should say, to talk to Ashland Town Manager too. Like, we should commiserate on some issues too, like they're trying to do Upper Charles Trail, but it's, it's hard. And they're doing some downtown improvements like we are too, but again, it's hard, it doesn't all happen at once, so it was interesting, we have a lot in common, like Tim said. So would the board consider authorizing us to send a letter inviting the Ashland Select Board? They're meeting later this week and they could review the request.
I will make any motion necessary to support that.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and a roll call vote?
Muriel Kramer, yes.
Ravana Shuley, yes.
Amy Roderbush, yes. And are you abstaining? Or you want to?
I don't know.
I don't think.
Yes.
Yes. Come on.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your patience and for organizing this.
No, thank you very much, and our hope is tomorrow night, your colleagues in Ashland will consider accepting your invitation.
Nice.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have come to the consent agenda.
Oh, mercy, there's more.
Okay, so tonight the consent agenda includes approving the minutes from the February 7th and February 14th meeting, and accepting an ambulance fund gift from Karen Woodbury in memory of Julia Harris. We've received several donations in memory of Julia Harris over the last few meetings. That's really nice. And we'll consider reappointing Christina Enos to the Cultural Council to a term expiring 3/10/26. And Select Board will consider approving the following marathon fund requests. $2,600 for the class of 2023, which will be used for a DJ at the Gillette Dinner and also for the police detail for the car parade. And $2,000 to the Senior Center to pay for the exercise classes at the Senior Center. And $1,500 to the Hopkinton Police Association for buying fish to stock the pond at the Sportsman's Association for the May 13th fishing derby. Anyone want to break any of these items out or make a motion?
I'm good. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Muriel Kramer, yes.
Mary Jo Lefreniere, yes.
Ravana Shuley, yes.
Amy Roderbush, yes. Okay, and then town manager report. Sorry, it's very late.
Yes, very quickly. In your packet, I included the draft Swap Trick Shared Housing Service intermunicipal agreement. In fact, this is implementing an idea that has been in discussion in the community for a while, including we went to town meeting, received funding from CPC to support the office. Idea is put the IMA in your hands, and then we'll ask the board for a formal vote at your next meeting.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Yeah, no, I think this is definitely a need to do more for affordable housing, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to sort of being on top of, I know many professionals have been on top of the process, but in general, we can't seem to make, the progress we want to make in Hopkinton with the dollars that we have, so it'd be great.
Yeah, this could be a good next step. Yeah, definitely. Main Street Corner?
Yeah, very quickly, for the board as well as the public, the motorized vehicles prohibited signs have now been installed.
I saw those, yeah.
Eversource is on site and they've started working on the undergrounding. And then the construction materials substantially have been removed from Marathon Way. We're now waiting for the subcontractor to Amorello to remove the remaining items.
Okay. Marathon is coming in 47 days, so.
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, I have walked on the multi-use path area of the downtown several times now since Christmas, and it's been, I've really enjoyed it. I feel very safe walking there. So.
And then I also included an update on PFAS, whereby, in fact, this past Monday, we held a site visit for the pre-construction bid process. We also have started our negotiations with Southborough on the IMA. We have some drafts that we have circulated internally. We have been in touch with the town council as well as the town manager in Southborough with regard to receiving some of Southborough's initial terms of reference.
Okay.
And then finally, I want to share with the public almost a last-minute reminder that the deadline for applying for the Senior and Disabled Tax Relief Fund is tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes, really wanted to share this with the public. Again, this is an opportunity for applicants who are at least 60 years old, coping with a state-recognized disability, who own and occupy a Hopkinton single-family home as their primary residence, to receive assistance. The married applicants must have an income below $60,000, and a single or widowed applicant must have an income of $45,000 a year. So again, the deadline for applying is tomorrow.
And they can apply either online or come to town hall, is that right?
Yes, we are here at town hall to help anybody who needs any help. The application forms are also available online.
Okay, great.
That's it.
Okay. And then, are there any liaison reports or board invites? I thought I had a couple, but now.
There's the
I'm gonna try to think of-
marathon breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
The Y.
You gotta get tickets tomorrow, I think is the last day, isn't it?
I don't know, I registered today, but I don't remember what the...
Yeah, I've enjoyed that in the past.
And, I'm sorry, invites or...
Oh, liaison reports.
I am planning to attend the Youth Commission meeting tomorrow. I'm hoping that is able to take place. Really excited about an upcoming event they're hoping to have that I'll tell more about once I know that they're really going to have it. And then I think I'll go to the zoning, the planning board zoning meeting too, just to see the zoning articles, the hearings.
Oh, is that their hearing?
I think it's next week.
March, okay.
March
I will-
6th.
That sounds right. I think I would like to try to watch that too.
March 1st.
The planning board is March 3rd. Oh,
March 6th, and then the Veteran Celebration Committee is going to start meeting again next month.
Great. Okay. Any liaison reports or board invites?
Well, I haven't been to any, but I have an MWITA meeting tomorrow morning at 9, so I will either Zoom in there or I will be there, so.
Okay. And then, Irfan, did you have any board liaison Liaison reports or board invite? Okay. The only things, I did remember a couple of things I was going to mention. So the MAPC Winter Council meeting is coming up this week, so I'll try to attend that. It's just a Zoom. And then there's a webinar, I think Connor and I are going to attend next week. It's coming up on Sunshine Week, the Government Transparency Week, but on social media best practices for, because I work at a school, it's helpful for me to work too, but, so you're complying with all kinds of public records law and freedom of speech laws when you use social media as a town or school or a politician. And then also, I think Elaine and I are going to go to a Zoom about ADA accessibility for meetings, in case there's any new things we need to know about for town meeting. That's coming up also next week, I think. And I think that's it. You ready?
Mm-hmm. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, roll call vote?
Carol Kramer, yes.
Mary Jo Lefreniere, yes.
Amy Roderbush, yes.
Good night.
Nice.
Good night, baby.